What do you want to do now?
Yeah, I go to Woodstock.
Mark isn't paid for anyway, so
Is that?
people like isn't paid for it.
I know.
Did you realize?
I kind of came when I brought my laptop out. I'm good at extempore speaking, in case you haven't noticed.
I haven't.
I never know.
Who is?
Populated. Oh, people are good at it. I'm not, so I haven't noticed.
All right, that's pretty cool. Wow.
Sorry.
No problem.
I like that you matched your mug to your shirt.
It's
Just
all part of,
that stylish.
Yeah.
is she's full service.
Okay, I'm going to ask the courtesy of the board to take care of this matter right away. It just came in at 4:45, so.
Yeah, we'll put it first at the top of the agenda.
Yeah.
After we go through, okay. Okay.
And he was waiting on the rain in a lot.
Aw, give us one minute, okay?
Not very wide.
No.
We have my
Rule 20?
script.
We're almost there.
I gotta get these scripts.
Okay. What do you want to do, Cliff's notes?
This will put my. Okay, we're up. It's
What's
just
that?
very.
Oh, nice, thanks. How about yours?
It's good.
Nice and
relaxing.
Yes, it was. Hear stories of people who have these big gatherings.
No, we're up. It's on.
Merriment.
It's on?
Yep,
Okay.
it's on.
Not to me.
Okay, I make a motion to call the meeting to order. Is there a second?
Second?
Roll call. Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Keating.
Aye.
Trustee Stetser.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, is there anybody who has any conflict of interest or anything to disclose regarding any of the agenda items before us this evening?
I do not. I do not.
I do not.
And I do not. Okay, do you want to give us the overview of our
The
open meeting
overview,
components?
the Cliff Notes is, let's go to, if you have any questions for the board and any, after any agenda item, please raise your hand on the Zoom platform. I take questions from Q&A. If you want me to ask the board the question, if you want to ask them yourself, raise your hand and I will call on you. I do not respond to the Q&A, not the Q&A.
No, to the chat.
Chat.
To chat. I guess I need to go home and start all over. I got nothing today. I just ask everybody to be nice to each other and please give your name and address even if you are in the Q&A. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before we start our agenda this evening, I would like to take a moment to address a concern that was brought to my attention by several residents. Evidently, there's been some misleading information circulating in our community about the nature and the purpose of our Village Ethics Board. Under New York State law, our village is required to establish an ethics board. And when I took office just under 2 years ago, there was no ethics board in place. To bring our municipality into compliance, and in my capacity as mayor, I appointed 3 members to the board. These members were approved by the Board of Trustees. And the purpose of this board is to review any ethics complaints that are submitted to the village and investigate as necessary, and then make a written disposition of those complaints. The very nature of this board's work, as with any ethics board across the state, is confidential, and it is conducted in an executive session. The findings of the ethics board are available for the trustees to review. We have 3 village residents who have volunteered their time generously to serve our community on this board. Each has a background in the law. and an impeccable reputation. To call into question the good work of this board on behalf of our village using inflammatory language such as biased or secretive is reprehensible. And to describe this board as one of my schemes indicates a fundamental lack of understanding of New York state law. And in closing, I extend my heartfelt thanks to the members of the Ethics Board for their diligence and their work on behalf of our community. And as mayor of this village, I would like to take the opportunity to apologize for this unwarranted mischaracterization of your good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. First of all, is the meeting being recorded? We good?
Yep.
Okay.
being recorded.
So I want to second what you're saying, and thank you for reading such a quality statement. I'll name names, so you were being anonymous in it. It was one of the trustees, it was Justin Lightgeb, who posted this inflammatory, hysterical, accusatory nonsense. And I'm really glad there's an ethics board. When there wasn't one, and I served under Bob Corby, I brought an ethics complaint against him, and it was heard by the other trustees. And that is just not a way to do that. The way to do that is the ethics board. So thank you for establishing that. And I don't have any insight into how they do their work, but I know some of the people on it, and they have very good reputations. I have no reason to think anything is untoward. And, I want to underline what Elisa said.
Okay, thank you. Let's continue on with our agenda, and we do have an addition to the agenda, and it's our Eagle Scout who's here to talk with us about a project that he'd like to do. So you want to come up and talk with us and state your name and all that.
So my name is David Van Hoven, AM in Pittsburgh, New York. And so you have, or I believe you should have my proposal in front of you. So I outlined what I'd be doing in more depth, and I included a blooper box, and I've decided on a design for it. I communicated with Wild Wings, and they provided me a design. In terms of the mealworm feeders and educational signage, I have not created a full design for them yet. I'm still working on that. So I don't have a complete budget yet or an itemized, but I'm probably looking around something in the range of $700 as my budget for all the tools and every other, the tools I might need and the materials.
So wonderful. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Tell me about the time frame of when you think this would all come together.
So I'd like to start early spring, so middle of March, end of March, and start building the project. And I'd probably start building at my house or maybe even at Outdoor Arboretum. I haven't figured it out yet. And then once we finish assembling everything, we would install it.
Okay. So started in the spring. How long does something like this take? A couple months, you think?
Hopefully not longer than maybe a month once I get started on that building, but
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Thank you.
I just have a question. You said that you're building the blooper boxes for the Friends of the Arboretum, so this is going to be gifted to that organization and not to the village?
Correct.
Okay, so it's going to...
No, actually, that's not correct.
Can you state your name, please, and your address?
427 Washington Avenue, President.
That's what the opening sentence says. That's why I'm asking for the clarification.
No, our understanding is this, we understand this is a village property, and the bluebird boxes would be gifted to the village and village property.
Okay, so we should make a notation of that. Okay. Any other comments or thoughts, or?
This is the second time he's come in, and I wasn't prepared because I didn't know it was on the
Yeah, we
agenda.
didn't.
So what were the outstanding items? Why did we have him come back? Was it because he didn't yet have the bluebird?
To
in
give
the
more
box?
definitive
Okay, great.
information to us. Yeah.
So do we need any additional information?
I just handed it over to Jeff if there was anything else we needed, to ask. I love Bluebird boxes. They're great.
How's it being funded?
You're funding the project.
Correct.
Yeah. There's no village funds being used for this. Excuse me one second. Yeah. So we make a motion?
Sure, accept the gift.
Yeah, to accept it. I mean, that's where we are. So I would entertain that motion. If someone wants to make one.
I will make a motion to accept the Eagle project for the Pittsford Arboretum. Are we calling it a donation, a project,
A gift.
a gift?
Yes.
One second.
Okay, we tied for second.
Okay, trustee Stetser,
Aye.
trustee Keating,
Aye.
trustee Lightgev,
Aye.
Mayor Plummer, motion passes.
Wonderful.
Thanks for
Thank you.
coming in again.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Good luck with it.
Looks like a great project.
Yeah.
Where are you going? Use a shop.
At my home, probably.
Okay. Well, this is our forward shop.
Oh, thank you. If I do need it, I will contact
Yeah, you
you.
know, I work here.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, feel free to contact us if you need help with anything. Okay.
You can come in.
Oh, sorry, excuse me. Can I get your name?
Can you give him his card, your card? You have a card? Yeah, let him grab a card for you, okay?
Steve Love is the code enforcement officer for the village of Pittsburgh. Great job, Steve. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, so, well, we'll wait for Steve to come back because he's up for the building inspector report, so, yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks again, take care. Okay, building inspector report? Everybody got the report?
Yeah,
Any
my only
questions?
question on it, Steve, is you went to court. So you had to go and, so this has escalated on 44 North Main?
It's been pending for a while, Dan.
Yeah.
It's been pending.
Yeah, we may be addressing that in a different session.
Yeah, I'm going to ask the board for an attorney-client session.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So that jumped out at me, obviously, is when things are in court, it's a serious thing.
We were in court probably 3 times last fall. And 0 done.
The what, tell me again?
Steve, what part of this should be discussed?
No, we're fine, we're gonna be speaking in a session with you and Jeff, so we're good with that. Any other, yes, Justin?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for providing the list of calls that you had. I think that's useful information to figure out where we can provide guidance on zoning and what people are looking for. What I was really trying to drive out of that is the themes that we tend to spend our time on and ways that we can clarify our code. So it seems like you mentioned windows and fencing a couple of times you got calls about. I don't know if you can expand on that maybe later. At some point we could follow up. I would just like to figure out if there's a way that, when you get those questions, are they easily answered by referring people to a certain section of code? Are there things that aren't clear? Or are there other materials that we can provide to make your job easier? I guess that's all.
Yeah, that could be a discussion even offline. We could even do FAQ on the website, things like that. We've been talking about that too.
Yep.
I think it's
Actually, in that, somebody kind of in the language was, he said, I'm looking at Brockport's, like the way they're expecting those things, and I would like to add into our website a building inspector section.
Yeah.
So that there'll be different things, some of it would pertain to stormwater, H2O, to meet the guidelines for stormwater management, some will be for historic purposes, things like that. So maybe each month we can switch a, letter from the building inspector, which would have a little information that might stave off some of the questions.
Yep. That's it.
And you already have a section on the website, so take a look at it.
Yeah, so we can figure that a little bit too,
Yep.
so it's a little more accessible.
one other
Yeah, sure.
unrelated question. You mentioned 25 South Main and several calls about that, or a few calls about that, and the medical or dental office behind it, I guess. I was just wondering, we had previously talked about possible rezoning, considering rezoning to allow that kind of a use. I know that essentially that would be a use variance, which has a very high burden of proof for the zoning board of appeals to approve. But I was just wondering that, given the history and expertise, if it would make sense to have that as an opportunity to get feedback from the zoning board of appeals and have them take a look at it and maybe have the planning board provide some recommendations about, if the use variance doesn't fit, this is a possible recommendation for a zoning change that doesn't change the character of the district, but which makes sense in the context of what is and what is not allowed. So I guess that was just my question that I wanted to throw out there to see if that was possible.
Well, that's where it was zoned before, and then it was removed. Am I correct?
I'm kind
Or
of
was it
sure
grandfathered?
about it. I'm not sure about the way in the past if that was ever zoned for
It was
me.
grandfather use.
It was grandfather, okay, thank you.
So it was pre-zoning,
Uh-huh.
Dennis was pre-zoning of that?
The current zone, in previous zoning changes, the allowance for medical uses had been removed. Back in the 1960s, we have to look at the old code to see what was actually allowed when he moved in.
So we can follow up on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. we can
Good
follow up.
news on that front, though, there was an offering accepted on that property.
Okay.
Oh, wow, okay. Things are moving along there.
Yeah.
Good to know. Okay, anything else for Steve? We're good? All right, well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay, next up, DPW report, please.
The only question I had for you, Zach, was the code enforcement building inspector training and certification classes. How did this all come together? Just thought it'd be a good idea?
I believe it's standard practice, they have a backup.
Backup.
Yeah.
Yep.
So just putting that in place.
Yeah, sounds great.
That way Steve can go on vacation.
We've looked at the town in the past for that backup.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's good. Is it online or is it in person?
Yes.
Yeah.
Online.
Yeah.
Many days ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like 6 days, 6 courses, 4.
And actually, I'm thinking, well, we do have it as an item, our review of the signage and ordinance updates for, NICEDOT, but maybe, because it's part of the report now, yeah. Do you want to we can talk about that now. You have Dorothea, do you have the little handouts, just of the little crib sheets, of kind of what we were talking about? Zach can get one too. And then the board, yeah, thanks.
Thanks.
And really, all this is NICEDOT, they're going to be coming back in, roughly 5 weeks or so to finish up some of these things. And what they did is they went through, because of the project, some of the signage doesn't match up with, striping or things that have been done. And they also highlighted where signage doesn't reflect actually what's in our ordinance. So I forwarded that information to our attorney, and he's going to be taking a look at that as well. And so what you have in front of you are just some things that they have identified, going forward. And a lot of it's pretty just kind of straightforward stuff. One sign had AM and it should have been changed to PM, things like that. So we wanted just to make the board aware. Is there anything else you wanted to add
Yeah,
on there?
just some of the language written in the code for parking, and then some of the signage on the roads does not mesh with what is painted on the road at this point. So just trying to make everything work together is where we're at. Also maintaining the parking that we need.
Yeah, the other thing too is the three of us did a walkabout and, really looked at what they were identifying. And one of the things that we're going to respond to is the right-hand turn lane that comes up State Street to the Four Corners. It's on the side of Thirsties. That is a really, I don't know if you see it, it's really an extended right-hand turn lane. And that actually violates our policy. So we would like to have that parking there because it's also traffic calming.
People are still parking there and still behaving
Yeah.
normally, so.
Yeah.
now
It's still
it's-
They
part of
have
it.
the right to per our policy, so.
Yeah,
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 yeah, and we're gonna pick up some spots that previously NICEDOT said we couldn't have parking, so we are gonna get some additional parking.
yeah. And then also the lane that is in front of where Bank of America was and it's Stella's Bridal, that right-hand turn lane, we're going to be able to put in, we thought maybe 2.
Yeah, we're hoping to put 2
Or 3,
additional spaces in
depending.
there. Roughly
Depending on the
equivalent of
size.
2 parking
Right,
spaces.
and that
That's
also,
how-
yeah, and that was also identified by the NICEDOT crew on the ground. When they had that whole turn lane blocked off for quite a while, traffic did not back up, it was traffic calming, and buses also had a wider radius to make their turn.
Yeah.
So we are making one more ask for
Yes.
eliminating it altogether as well. But
Yeah,
at
we
the
are.
minimum, we've already got agreement that there'll be.
Yeah, we were at least inching in that direction, for sure, so, that's a good thing. Yes,
Just a note on my street,
name and address, please.
Robert Corby, 7 Washington Avenue.
Thank you.
A couple other issues. The construction sign is still standing on my street, even though the construction was done months ago.
Mhm.
So that needs to be removed.
Mhm.
There's also some other things I'm concerned about, because, and I congratulate you on the parking spots on North Main Street, that's wonderful news, good work. The turning lane in front of the dairy has been extended, and it cuts over right in front of the dairy. And there have been numerous near misses, because that used to be very short. It started
Yep.
out at the pub driveway. The best solution
We're aware
would
of
be to restore that, put parking in front of the Swan,
Mhm.
and then we would pick up spaces to sort of compensate what we lost where the new pedestrian crossing is.
Yeah.
I also
Excuse me
know-
one second, we want to speak to that. Renee,
We
you want to?
did- No, well, that
Oh,
was.
that's right.
I'm not sure if the hydrant exists or not.
Yeah, we think there's
Oh,
a
yeah.
hydrant there. Zach's gonna get
Well,
it.
And because of the pedestrian refuge that went in and our work with our first responders with the fire department, they wanted to have more room. So we lost a couple parking spots there. That was part of that negotiation. We were all surprised at the length of that turning lane, but you had some thoughts on that turning lane as well,
Well,
in terms of what you've seen.
it does help because it seems like most of the traffic does turn onto Washington rather than continuing down 96.
Mhm,
And it's never really been an issue in the past, it's just delineated now.
mhm,
May not need to be delineated.
mhm.
Yeah, it'll fade.
Well, we certainly can revisit that with them, because that came up amongst us as well,
I have a few other issues.
I'm sure.
My observation, working at the dairy every day, is that there are safety issues. And it worked fine before, because people would just get beyond the pub, they'd go over,
Mhm,
and there was no flow issues. So we could pick up parking, we could make it safer. What's very complicated there is, in addition, now that you have 2 lanes of traffic, that's where the most in and outs are, because you have both JoJo's and the pub, the gas station, and the dairy. And it makes no sense to add, on Monroe Avenue, they eliminated an extra
Yeah.
lane because of the turning movements. We have gone backwards in that direction, so that really needs to be fixed.
We identified that.
We did
As soon
identify,
as they
yeah.
did the temporary lines, it was a new thing that we didn't know was going in, so,
The other concern I have, and several other concerns, the crosswalks of the Four Corners are narrower than they were before, which is antithetical to what we talked about initially in our negotiations with DOT when I was mayor. It does not,
address that.
there was discussion that the the vehicle stop lines would be pulled back farther from the cars, and that with the mast arms that are being installed, there would be, because they were going to do a leading light
yeah. then-
so that the pedestrians would have the edge before the cars got the green light. But now, the stop lines are closer. I've been nearly hit, I've heard from other people that have been nearly hit, because people aren't paying attention that there's a crosswalk. So it's very dangerous, and safety has deteriorated. The turning lane on Monroe Avenue has also been lengthened in front of Messner's. That would be, I know because of the fire department, you won't get parking in there.
Right,
Yeah,
But there are people, because that turning movement is very busy, people accelerate towards the Four Corners, and the longer turning lane, they hit Washington, and they just zoom up to the Four Corners.
okay. Keep
And
going.
the last,
Because we're kind of,
the big issue is the removal of parking on South Main Street, because the village code still permits parking there. So I assume if there was an accident, the village would be liable, because you're telling people to park there in the village code, which is by local law by street. But now there's signage prohibiting parking, and the lines are too small. The other big elephant in the room.
that's part of what NICEDOT has identified in the letter to us, so that's why we're talking about it tonight. So I think you're really referencing things that we're all looking at, so.
Okay, well, there's another issue. NICEDOT, the DOT has approached John, I forget his last name, at the corner, about buying some of this real estate to acquire more real estate at Jefferson Road to increase the turning radius. That's in direct conflict with our complete streets policy and our active transportation plan. And that would be a step towards becoming Penfield and antithetical to everything.
I can tell you that we'd reached out to them specifically about that, and that was right when the project was initiated, and they said there were absolutely no plans to do that. So, maybe there's conflicting information.
Yeah.
So we'll follow
Well,
up.
I've heard from
Exactly.
property owners. So
Okay, no, but I'm just saying, now this is conflicting information, so we can follow up.
I'm encouraged to
Great.
hear that, because we all know
Okay.
how important walkability
Okay,
is.
yep, we all do,
Is
absolutely.
there something, Zach, or you should add to the list to ask about, is that corner on Jefferson?
I think what we need to do is before they come back in here to finish up the work, we get Kevin in here.
Yeah, I know, we have the powwow.
Yeah.
Yep,
and have
I agree,
an open
because the list is long.
Yeah.
Yep, yeah, can you add that? Zach, thank you, okay, great.
I have one more thing for Zach.
Sure.
So Zach, the tree that you were talking about, that on Sutherland that dropped and that you think needs to come down, or
Yeah.
the group needs, how dire is it? Like, when would that need to happen?
Well, the next windstorm, it could, drop to the top of the tree. It's tough to say. I mean, there's plenty of rot showing.
Yeah.
What's underneath is hard to say without having further examination on it. But it's showing signs of dieback, and
So are you recommending as soon as possible if you want us
yeah,
to?
I would. It's a good time to do it and get another tree in the ground to replace it. Not that I want to see an old sugar maple road.
I know,
How is that price range? Have you
So
got an
that's taking
actual
off the county
quote?
contract pricing. The tough thing is the company that has the contract, when they come through, we measured it, it came up as 35 inches in diameter, which puts us at the $1,200 point. Depending on whose tape measure is going around the tree, it could be 36, which puts it at the 2,500.
Okay.
So unfortunately, we're kind of.
Stretch that measure.
I'm sorry?
Stretch that tape.
Well, or we get, the other alternative is to bring in another contractor, and it's gonna be twice as much.
Yeah.
yeah,
Or
the
make
county,
it out of nowhere.
the county,
So are you looking for our approval?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, I more or less want you guys to know that there is an old tree that is in decline and is becoming a safety issue.
So I'll make a motion to approve of that work ranging from $1,275 to $2,544.
I'll second, then I have a question.
we have okay, second? Okay, back for discussion?
Zach, do the neighbors who are around the tree know that it's an issue, and how do they feel about this, so that they're part of the process, whether it needs to come down or not, just including them in the.
I can make them aware of it. I'm sure they knew because, they're without power for
Right.
4 days.
Right.
But-
Just so they're not, completely surprised when someone comes.
Yeah, I
It's
can
very good. point.
send them out a notice just to let them know that there will be some activity up around the house and they're going to lose the large tree.
Yeah,
But I think, the safety hazard of it, they would appreciate.
okay, yeah, so if we could do that long before, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
how much
I
time we
can't
have.
guarantee, so the company that, has the contract, we're booked out pretty far right now, so it
Okay.
might be a little while before they come in. The contractor that came in and got the hanger out of the tree, the Widowmaker, we call it.
Yeah.
Was charged $250 for that service.
Yeah.
If we wanted all of the dead cut out of the tree, it'd cost $800. So it's hard to justify spending that much money if we're going to be taking the tree down anyway, although that is an additional alternative if we wanted to try to hang on to the tree for a longer period of time.
So then we would replace, meaning you guys, I know I'm not part of it, but we would replace the tree in this, or whenever the planting.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have access to a stump grinder, so as soon as the tree is down to the ground, you can go in there with a stump grinder, grind it, and put it in the tree.
Okay, great.
Great.
It'll be a native,
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't think we're gonna.
great. Anything else for Zach?
You need to vote on your answer.
Oh, we have a motion, that's right, I'm sorry. Yes, we have a motion and back for discussion. Any further discussion, we're good? Roll call?
Trustee Lickett?
Aye.
Trustee Keating?
Aye.
Trustee Stetser?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passes. I have comments from the public.
Okay,
Our Pierce, his address, forget Art's address. Please add the need to have the pedestrian crossing signs at State Street at the location of ESL be installed, similar to all the newly New York State DOT constructed crosswalks on Monroe Ave, North and South Main and State. Appreciate the work by Bob Corby and Renee over the months and years and seeing that New York State DOT incorporated the crosswalk at the east end of the village in the DOT roadway improvement project. Question: what happened to the plans to incorporate a medium at the east end of the village on State Street?
I can speak to that about the median. That is, the town has undertaken that project, and I'm not sure if it's in their budget this year or it will be in their budget next year. So, and it's more than one median. It's a median at our village and town line, and that's the one that's the drive over, right?
No, didn't we get, I thought.
Well, the Wood Creek one is hard curb
Okay.
pedestrian refuge, so there's two medians, and then
Yeah. I
as you.
feel like that one also, we discussed getting a hard curb, but I could be wrong.
No, I think that one, I think
That
the one
was
on the
drive
village
over?
line's a drive
Okay.
over.
All
But
right.
nonetheless, that is a project that has been turned over to the town. We worked with the town, and we picked up the engineering component of the project, and then the town is going to be implementing it because it's on their property.
It's a bigger
So-
thing than we anticipated.
Yeah,
Great.
it actually is a larger
Yeah.
project, which is really nice. And so I think if you do want to follow up on that, that's the information we have on our side, but you certainly can contact the town and see where it is in their pipeline for implementing that project. Anything else, Dorothea?
The signs, do you want to?
Yeah, Art, I will follow up with you, as previously discussed in our email, as soon as I can.
Okay, so we'll close that out. Okay, great. Well, thanks, Art. All right, all set with Zach? Anything else for us, Zach?
I do have one thing that I just want to bring to your attention. At next week's budget meeting, I will be proposing the approval of Cold Springs Contracting to come through and do some electrical work for us on our streetlights. The service supply breaker box that's underground, it's, in a poor shape due to, the weather that gets in there.
Where's that one?
This is out in front of Pontillo's. It's a
That's the one, that's one,
handhole.
yeah, and it feeds the clock.
It feeds the clock,
why we
it feeds
had-
all
yeah.
the streetlights up and down
Yep.
State Monroe.
Okay,
And we're having issues with the functionality of the box due to corrosion and wires coming into it. So they're proposing for $3,400 to come through, replace the box, and just clean up the connections going into that
yeah.
breaker box.
And you'll have that for us?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll send you guys the contract, or the quote rather.
Okay.
So you're.
Is that impacting the harp lights too? Because they've been out a lot on.
The harp plates are a different issue.
Okay, so they're not,
Those- yeah,
that's not impacted
not
by
part of
that.
that.
Okay.
Those are RGB lights.
Right,
This
okay.
is just a service for the.
Yeah.
They have been out a lot. I don't know.
They were on and then they went
Yeah,
out, and
yeah.
then, it's,
Back to square one, we've had
Yeah.
RGB to come through and do some work for us.
yeah.
So Zach, you're going to propose that for next year's budget?
For this year's budget on Wednesday of next week,
Okay.
the budget meeting.
Because it's not.
The upcoming budget year?
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Oh, good? Okay. Yeah. I just want to speak about the lights, because you prepared yet another outage report
Yes.
for RG&E. And as we all know, this has just been horrendous. It's just been ongoing with them. The lights are fixed, then they're not. And so we're thinking that we probably should put the outage reports on our website with the information and the status. So, folks that, call in and want to reach out to RG&E, we'll have the number there for them, and then a list so people can see really
Yes.
what's going on, because this
Provide
is
a link
really,
right to their webpage, right to their outage
Mhm.
webpage, so.
Yeah.
It's just a process of putting your name, your email address, if you don't mind, having.
well, the location of the light,
The location of the
yeah.
light, the number, it's pretty simple, it takes about 2 minutes to.
And it helps us, because even when, you're very diligent about reporting these outages, but it helps when they also hear from residents.
Yeah,
It reinforces what
yeah,
we're asking as well, so,
they get second hearing just from me, so.
Yeah.
Or anybody, who's seen outage to.
and then the RG&E lights are numbered, for those of you listening, they're numbered on the street side,
On the street side, you should see it at
so
the
you
top of the
can
pole.
look up and see the number.
A couple little yellow numbers sitting up at the top of the pole, or just give the closest address, and the
Either
best
way.
description that you can do,
Yeah,
and mark it somehow, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
with a ribbon, just something to show that that light,
It's out.
is identifiable.
yeah, sometimes we put the yellow caution tape around it so they see where it is.
Or notify me and we'll come out.
Yeah, call DPW for sure, or us at Village Hall, and we can help with that. We're happy to do that, for sure. Anything else for Zach? Okay.
Just made
Oh,
positions
yeah.
on the light.
Uh-huh.
There are several of our cast iron Acorn lights are out. The Acorn light with the fiberglass base on the east side of Main Street, just north of the canal, is also out.
Mhm.
Also on South Main Street, a few of the lights just south, on the west side of the street, just south of the Four Corners intersection, have water in the globes, so that just needs to be dumped out.
Which one is this?
I think it's one or two immediately south of the Four Corners on the west side of Main Street, in front of the Parker Block, in front of Chandeliers.
Okay.
So we can take a look, we'll take a look at that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving along. The treasurer's report.
Great, it's me. Okay, we have the treasurer's report. Is there any questions to the abstract?
Yeah, the roof amount came in at 21,773. Was that within their estimate?
I'm gonna ask Steve on that because he handled that for me. Do you remember what the original estimate? I think that's about right.
I think it came,
The roof?
the roof project came in at, what was it, 21,773? And was that within the parameters of what the estimate was that they gave us?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought
I
so.
thought it sounded about right.
Yeah, and you did a final inspection up there as well?
Yeah, Zach and I both.
Okay.
They did a nice job.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, they were very efficient.
In time for all the rain.
I know, under the wire here.
I did have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
May I? The first question is, under A2770, that's the donor and miscellaneous money, about $1,000. I was just wondering.
Oh, you're going to the financials?
Oh, yeah,
Finish
yeah.
the
Oh,
bill
okay,
pay
the
first?
treasurer's report.
Yeah.
Hang in. Anything else on the treasurer's report?
No, everything else looks straightforward. Thank you.
Okay.
Approval.
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
make a motion to approve the checks,
Payments.
payments.
Okay.
1 second.
Roll call?
Trustee Stetser?
Aye.
Trustee Keating?
Aye.
Trustee Lickett?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay.
Okay, now let's go to the November financials. And since Trustee Lickett, you want to jump right in? Go ahead. And answer
Sure,
your
thank you
question.
for preparing this. So 2 questions, under A2770, I know we've got $1,000 under donor and miscellaneous money. I just want to make sure that we've got that segmented somewhere with the original donation purpose.
Yes, I'm not sure what that amount is actually. I want to take a look at that because
Okay.
I saw that pop up and I want to make sure what that is exactly to make sure it's
Okay.
done appropriately.
And I was just, as a follow-up on that, is there the possibility, once we do that analysis, I know we've got dot accounts, sub-accounts, so it could be A2770 dot whatever for the specific purposes, just so that we've got, I know it's more noise in the report, but just as
I'll take a look and see if I
yeah.
can prep that.
depending on how many we have, I just thought that might be a nice way to keep it separate. The other item that I had is that I noticed that the contractual grant writing amount is almost
Over.
10,000
And I'm
over
going
the.
to speak to that. You're getting way ahead of me.
She hasn't done a
Okay,
report
all right,
yet.
Let me start.
I'll wait for them.
And then I'll address those
Sure.
issues, okay? I'm going to start with the revenues. I'm going to point out that the clerk fees, we're doing fabulous in clerk fees because that's where the 5,000 from the grant came in from. Steve was able to get, it was a NYSERDA, or it was one of those groups, the Clean Energy.
Oh, Climate Smart.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
Climate Smart
gotta work
program.
with our accountant. I think
Yep.
it's actually in the wrong spot. So as much as I'd like to say the clerk's been working and getting more money in, that's not really the case, I feel. So I just wanted to point that out. I wanted to point out the donor money. I wanted to take a look at that. Also want to point out, you're not going to see it in this one. You're going to see it in the financials for December. We're about 9,000 on franchise fees. It is coming in a little low. I'm keeping an eye on that. Gross receipts, though we're only showing 5,000, typically we see RG&E in March. So that number might stay looking low for a little while, okay? Just a quick note on those. Then, as Justin pointed out, we have some negatives and we're still reviewing. I need to look at Osborne's bills because for PCP, it's showing 10,000 over. I want to verify that's correct before we make any journal entries to correct that. We're also showing, as you said, on the grant writer, and that needs to be, that was added after the budget.
Yeah.
And I think a portion of that should actually go to another line. So I want to move that to an appropriate line where it should be.
What do you think is an appropriate line for that?
I'm thinking in the engineering, so I want to take a look, because actual engineering work was done, I believe, as part of that grant project. So I'll take a look at that. We are over in the personal services for drainage, as again, with labor, that's hard for me to predict, because I never know where that's going to be automatically. Since I'm looking at December, I'd rather do budget transfers all at one time, so I'll have a prepped budget transfers for you with the next financials for that. Outside of that, I'm not seeing too much of concern. The only lines that might be still looking a little dangerous is our healthcare, because we have added people to the healthcare system more than we anticipated. So I'm going to take a look at that closer, and I'll probably be asking for a budget transfer into that line. But at this time, I do not see any issues, and there is no issues with sewer. Is there any questions on the financials?
Yeah, the Osborne bill, the challenge, of course, is we're looking at November's financials, right?
Yes,
So that's not even halfway through the
correct.
fiscal
But
year, and we're over by 10,000.
that's why I want to take a good look at that and make sure we didn't inadvertently put another bill in there
Okay.
that could have went to general, one of the other lines, just because sometimes they get inputted and maybe we hit the wrong line. That's why I just want to double check it. It very well might be correct. If it's correct, then obviously we need to transfer to cover the shortage, and we're also going to have to anticipate the possibility of more this year.
I can tell you that the bill is probably higher because we did LWRP and certificate of approval in this quarter.
Thanks.
And that very well might be
Should
what I
not
want.
be repeated at that level.
Yeah.
But that's what I need to just double check before I make a transfer.
Thank you.
So if I can have approvals on the November financials?
So moved.
Second? Is there a second?
Oh, I thought you seconded, I'll
Oh, I can
second.
second, I guess. I like you guys. to
No,
do
I
it.
gotcha. I was
Okay.
surprised you seconded, but
I was asking you a question.
I got it.
Renee, you got it?
Yep.
Okay. Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Keating.
Aye.
Trustee Stetser.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes. And as I said, I'm just finalizing December. That will be prepped for you for next week for our first budget meeting. So you will have at least 6
great.
solid months of data.
You're really current. I mean, you're really
Yeah.
coming along. Thank you.
This is only like because we only had the one meeting in December, so
Yeah.
I don't count that against me. COG report. This was brought to my,
Please silence your cell phones.
I'll try, it's a new
Oh, it's,
model.
oh dear.
okay.
Okay.
COG report, this was brought to my attention that we were out of compliance with getting our reports in, that I'm happy to say we are back. All reports are up to date. The next report isn't due till March, April. As a matter of fact, they haven't even handed the report to me to do. So as soon as we get that, we'll get it filed. As always, this was something that was typically been handled by the archive office, our records clerk office, and we just didn't have that personnel, and I wasn't aware it was not caught up. So that's completed. Village Hall back entrance bid. I'm sure everybody's really excited to see how many bids and what we got. We got none.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's been really difficult.
It's very difficult times to get bids on projects. Talked to Jennifer Aaron, she's reaching out to some people. We did have someone with interest, but for some reason they didn't bid. So I'm coming to the board to let you know we're going to re-prep docs and bring them to you next meeting, try to go back out. That's all we can do in this climate is keep putting it out there. There's nothing to incentivize that bid because it's a grant project that needs to stay specific. I can't throw like the front porch.
Right.
I have to keep it really to that. So that's where that is. So I'm really hopeful we'll get a bid the next time around.
It's just the times we're in, you know?
Yeah.
And didn't Jen say she was going to, circle back with that one?
Yeah, she
bidder
was
to
gonna
say,
contact to see
Is there
what
some
the
additional
distribution-
information? Or-
Yeah, she even
Okay.
reached out to the city of Rochester and grabbed bidders from their projects and sent the project directly to them. So we really have been trying to get somebody.
Yeah. Well, we're not alone in this. Other municipalities
not.
are having a difficult time.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And then BPD, the addendum for services, this is our bond writers. This is an annual document. I just need authorization to go ahead and sign off for that.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Keating.
Aye.
Trustee Stetser.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, fine.
Okay, I just keep talking.
Well, there's a lot to cover.
Toshiba, our lease on our copier is up, and what we're looking to do, instead of getting a whole new copier, is release the copier we have since it's in great shape and we have no issues with it. They're reducing the cost. It's going to be just like we have a new, they'll cover it. So nothing's really changed. We just really want to extend that lease. So if I can have authorization to move forward with that.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll
Okay.
call.
Trustee Stetser?
Aye.
Trustee Keating?
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
The motion passes. And the last is just a simple announcement from the clerk's office on our website. You'll see a new button on the clerk's website. Pay your bills.
Yeah.
We now have online payments. We're waiting for a little swiper machine, so you'll be able to process in-house as well. So we now take credit cards.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
one other quick question while we have you, Dorothea. As we're preparing for the budget, I noticed that there is a tax exempt property report that's required. It might be a fairly new requirement in the last few years. It's under real property tax law, section 495. And I thought it would just be really good to have a better understanding of the tax exempt properties in the village. And it seems like this might be something that we have to comply with. So I just wanted to.
I'll look into it, but typically we have in the report, we receive
Great.
the amount of the total tax exempted properties.
Okay, yeah, maybe we're already in compliance with that, I just wanted to.
Yeah, I'm sure that's something that happens on the assessor's end, but I will reach out to them and see if there's anything on my end that we need.
Okay, yeah, it should be in real property tax law 495. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, anything else?
No, I think
Are we
that's
doing the
quite it.
minutes or are we?
I was gonna say, why don't we do them at the end,
Perfect.
just because there's, just keep things moving along.
Only,
Yeah, there's like 15 of them,
I
so
know, there's like
that's okay.
a lot,
Yeah,
a
let's
lot of
wait, I
minutes.
agree.
Okay, so, yeah, let me scroll down here. Next up is Mr. Harder on? Scott?
yes, he is.
Okay. Next up, we're pleased to announce we received a $300,000 grant award to our village from the New York State Office of Parks and Recreation and Historic Preservation for potential work along Shane Place on the canal path. As many of you know, there was a serious erosion problem this past summer. The Canal Corporation came through and at least stabilized that embankment, and we have an opportunity certainly to do some improvements to that path and make it safer and more accessible for our residents. So with that in mind, it's really just more about what our next steps are. This is, I think, really great news because the canal path has not been in great shape for a while. And I want everybody to understand, we have received the grant. It is a $300,000 grant, and then up to $300,000, I should say, and then the village supplies matching funds. So essentially, if we use the whole grant for whatever the project is, we would be getting $600,000 worth of value and work on this improvement project for our village, 50% off. That's how I look at it. So it's a good bargain. And understand also, we haven't committed a dollar taxpayer funds yet. This is just the notification that the grant has been awarded to us. So this is really an opportunity for us to really look at our next steps. We're going to be working together as a village and as a community with residents to see what our next steps are. And I may turn this over to Scott Harder. Scott, if you want to add anything else to this in terms of, moving forward.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we sure can. Hi.
Hi, how are you? I don't think I have much to add to that. I mean, I think we put this through in July. We contacted a lot of consultants. We were able to get one who responded, and they were successful in getting a commitment from the state. So I guess my thinking is you probably want to circle back on a consultant to expand on ideas and steps into design and how you would like to use the money and how much of the money you'd like to use.
Yeah, and to that point, I have been in touch with a consultant. Obviously when we got the grant, we were all excited. And we are going to, I think it's next week, we have a couple of meetings scheduled for other grants that we applied for that we didn't receive, just to circle back, what could we have done differently? What could we do better? So it's a learning process for us. So there's that piece that we're going to close out at this point. And so, we move forward. And so once we kind of, get a little bit more information, you're going to be you haven't gotten the rest of the commitment letter?
No, the only thing we
It was just the
received
notice.
is the notice. So
Okay.
I'm sure there's a full packet of
Yeah.
information that has to come out and what we'd have to do,
Yeah.
steps involved,
Yeah.
dates, times, deadlines.
So we'll be bringing that back, to
Sure.
the board and.
It all requires board approval.
Yeah, exactly. And, working with the public going forward. Yes.
Yeah, can you hold a
Yes,
moment?
excuse me. Yes.
Mr. Corby, I'm finding your behavior very distracting. Can you please wait until it's time for public comment to make it known that you'd like to make a public comment? I appreciate engagement from the public, but the waving of the arms while people are trying to conduct business is extremely distracting. Thank you.
Okay, may I speak? Robert Corby.
But just very briefly, please, because we're trying to move along.
Yeah, as a
Okay.
taxpayer, I just have some questions
Mhm.
about the process. And we haven't heard much discussion about the other grants. So I'm trying to understand how much would the total, if we had received all the grants, how much would that be for? And how much money would the village be on the hook for? How would the village pay that back? And the reason I'm asking is because there's other potential projects, the street paving projects, the garage project, the sustainability project.
Oh, you've been looking at my whiteboard.
Well, I
In
haven't.
my office.
I haven't, but as somebody that, is obviously familiar with village finances, my concern as a taxpayer is what is the long-term fiscal implications of these debts? So first of all, what are the elements, the other grants, what were they for? How much would they cost? What's the schedule? And how would we afford to
Well,
pay?
you know better than anybody then, because of your background and your experience, that just because you get a grant, you don't have to use all of it. So there's that. And as I just said, we have not committed $1 of taxpayer money yet. This is what we have received. And the way the consultant wrote the grant and worked, it was a combined grant process, so it was multiple grants, as you know, and this was made available to the public up to $1 million. That doesn't mean we're on the hook for $1 million at all. And this is really an opportunity for the first time in years to invest back into our village. This is a good thing. This is what we want. And Dorothea, you did a presentation also with our bond company to the board in a public meeting. Was it last year? I think it was. Yeah. Was it last year? The bands and the bonds. So that is something we would be looking at going forward. So there's a lot of opportunity here for us to reinvest in our village. And as we move along on this, you'll be pulling together that information. We're going to be having our accountant with the budget meetings talk about this as well. So again, I think we're in good hands. And I'd also just like to close out, again, for a number of years, we have spent a tremendous amount of funds on legal fees, and this is really an opportunity for us to switch gears and use the funds in a positive way to invest in our community.
So are there other programmatic elements besides the drawing that we saw last summer that are the other?
This was a conceptual design, excuse me one second, let me answer the question. And then I'd like us to move on.
Well,
and if you have any other, excuse me one second, I have the floor right now. This was a conceptual design. It was told to the public that way. It was told to the board this way, to simply literally put something in over the transom so we could get the funding, which we did. So the entire upfront investment was a minimal investment, and we got a $300,000 potential return for our village. So again, positive news.
So there's no attempt to relocate Shane Place to the railroad right of way.
This is about the piece. If you go online and you look, if you go online.
Is that correct?
Okay, excuse me. If you go online, you can see that this is for a specific section of the canal path. That's all this grant was for.
So there's the other grants have no other programmatic
No.
things that we don't know about?
No.
So it's.
No, because everything is done in public and is transparent, and that's how this was done. Thanks so much for your questions. Okay, so excuse me, we're going to move on. Thank you. So next up,
I'm sorry, Mayor Plummer, I have.
Okay, we have some comments?
Art Pierce, Mr. Pierce, you really need to give me your address. I can't remember where everybody lives in the village. Able to repeat the name of the consultant, explain the matching, bringing the total amount to 600,000. Appreciate Bob's questions. As the village residents may not know how the grant system works or the plans that the village representatives are aware of. How much is the village's investment associated with the 300,000 New York State DOT grant, 70 State Street? Thank you.
I think we just covered that. I think we,
Asked and answered.
yeah, I mean, I think we just covered that, and if you want additional information, or please, feel free to just give us a call, but I think we really kind of went through that process. And Scott, I don't know, you're still online, if there's anything you'd like to add to that, but that's pretty much how it works.
I don't have anything to add, no.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Oh, yeah.
I appreciate the fact that this came through for us and the effort that's been put into it. From my own perspective, I had a lot of concerns about this process. I'm going to be very brief since I've already stated them. I feel like the grant applications were too hurried. They were too high level and conceptual. They were ultimately sent through to the respective agency without board approval. We had only approved the cost for the contractor to.
We went over this like 6 months ago.
We did.
It's all.
And I have the floor, please.
You've asked, you've gone over and over this. What's new?
Trustee Keating, I have the floor, please.
He does have a floor here.
Okay, then
Okay.
next I'm going to talk about what
Okay.
happened 3 years ago.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
What do you have to
Excuse me,
add to
Dan,
this?
it's a point of order here. I'm the mayor, I'm running the meeting, it's a point of order. Trustee Lightgeb does have the floor and is asking some questions.
Thank you, Mayor.
No, he's going over history.
Okay,
Okay, what's new, Justin?
hang on, he has the floor, please.
Okay, got it.
Thank you again, Mayor. I feel like I need to explain this because this is something that has come up and up again. I also share the concern that the residents and the board do not have enough insight into what is planned. I appreciate that this is high level and conceptual. I'm looking forward to these details being brought back to the board so we can discuss and make sure that we are being transparent about what we're planning with these funds that we've received. I also
Can I just interject, because I think you raised a really good point. And this is what's said when we went through the grant cycle, and these grant cycles are short, there's a window, and these are highly competitive across the entire state. So what we said with great clarity, I hoped, was that if we get the funding, then we really start to drill down on the design. We work with our residents. We say, okay, we had a conceptual design. Obviously, I know you felt that it was too conceptual, but clearly we got $300,000, and I guess that particular entity in New York State thought that it was enough for them to give us $300,000. So I'm still sticking with this is good news for all of us, and we're going to work together, and we're going to make this happen, and it's going to be a solid improvement for our village for the first time in many, many years. Continue, please.
Yes, thank you for that explanation. I would also like to touch on the notion of the ban that has been discussed, which I understand would be taking on debt as a municipality. The board has not agreed to that, and I think that needs serious discussion before we consider doing it.
Thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and I think that's where we would go anyway. That's what we do. That's how we conduct business. Yes, Dan, please. Dan, Trustee Keating has the floor.
I don't have anything to add. Of course, we're going to talk about it. We're not voting on anything tonight. You know that. It's quite clear we're going to go through a process in public and do this. So what's the problem? What's next?
I mean, I think it's been asked and answered and it's been discussed. And, I'm looking forward to continuing with this project. I think it's a wonderful opportunity. Okay.
Sorry, Mayor.
Oh, yes, I'm sure there's all kinds of questions. Yep.
Peggy Caraberis, 81 South Main Street. Congratulations on the SHPO award. I would like to ask the village include Historic Pittsford in the environmental review and the planning for the project. Thank you.
Absolutely. And and all residents, all hands on deck. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for all of us. Thanks, Peggy. Any other comments there?
No.
Okay, great. So moving along.
I'd like to recognize that that's a productive comment. And I appreciate that from Peggy, as opposed to griping. So.
Okay, moving along. The video conferencing law.
Yeah, Jeff, did you write that up?
I haven't done anything on this.
Yeah, we have to give directions. The goal tonight would be, if we want to pursue this, this is what is it, a sample of the law? We could give Jeff direction perhaps in terms of, fine tuning and some things that maybe we would like to add in. And just for the public, this is a law that will, I believe through 2024, allow, in case of an emergency, a board member to video conference into the meeting. And we are going to be upgrading our meeting room, so we would have a screen where everyone would see the trustee, visually on the screen, so they can interact directly with the board and the public. And it would be transparent. It wouldn't just be a voice on the phone or something. It would be with implementing all of that technology to make this happen. And this would only be really in circumstances that were really, an emergency. And I can say, for example, we had a death in the family. I was at a funeral last week, and it was last Thursday. If it had been this week, I would have, if we had this, I could, certainly participate in the meeting and have the deputy mayor run the meeting. Things like that, where, there's just some unforeseen events. And also still, we have, COVID, and we have flu, and, a lot of stuff out there. So, there are circumstances sometimes your kids are sick, and maybe you've been exposed, but you're well enough to video in and participate in the meeting. And it's just another way, I think, of us to move the business of the village forward with full participation from the board in these types of circumstances, these specific circumstances that are identified as an emergency. And I think it's a positive thing, and I think it really just expands the opportunity.
Just to amend what I said to Dan,
Yeah.
I've looked at some things that were expressed by this board
Yes.
as concerns about
Extraordinary circumstances.
the extraordinary circumstances, what that might look like. What's the other thing?
The other was the quorum being Village Hall, but I had a question about that because I actually looked up right now, the law doesn't specify that we have to be at Village Hall. It's just that it has to be a public building, and public building is
And it could be three different public buildings.
right, or even as it exists now.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, because I got hung up on that a little bit.
Well, no. As it exists now, it is not the way it used to be. So there was a different way to video conference.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I think we're talking about two different things. One of the things expressed as a concern was that if the way the law was written, having the quorum present at Village Hall, because it just says having the quorum present at a place where, so the 3 board members who are in person have to be at a public location for a publicly accessible location.
Correct.
And one of the things that was expressed is that, can we specify that it's Village Hall? And right now, we could have a meeting at a school or right now, we don't have Village Hall designated,
Not
correct?
unless you had authorized video conferencing. So right now, there's no opportunity to have members at different places.
Right.
But let me, Justin, how you want to say?
Go ahead.
Let me clarify. There's a state law that authorizes this board to pass a local law that would allow you to do this. So whatever's in the state law, the restrictions in the state law must be continued on in your law, but you may make further restrictions.
If we wish to do so, we could.
Yes,
Okay.
if you had it all.
So I think the last time we discussed this, we thought we couldn't make many changes.
Right.
And to clarify some of the extenuating circumstances language.
Right.
And where that quorum would be as well.
So in the meantime, I've been in touch with Wade Beltramo of Nikon. He said, has indicated to me that we can make further restrictions.
Okay.
Provided that we don't make it less restrictive than the state law.
Okay. And it looks like, to me, a I mean, a bunch of villages, which I think I talked to trustee Lightgib about the last time. We didn't have any data to know who else was doing this and how, how common it was. And it looks like quite a few villages and towns and cities have, in New York, have passed this back in the summer.
And without any real change from the state law, without further restriction.
Yeah, they essentially used the template, that,
Right.
not the template, but the original law that was,
I mean, there's some fine tuning
yeah.
that was done, Renee pointed out, with, dealing with notice, how you let the board know, what's the timing of that notice has to be. So
Mhm.
it's really entirely up to this board.
So do we, I mean, I asked the question before, do we value the idea of allowing our board members to participate when there is an emergency and they're out of town? Do we want to have that? To me, it helps when we only have 3 people present. We're missing the diversity of opinion that I value. And, I see that this could be helpful if we can get the extenuating circumstances issue taken care of so that it couldn't be misused. I think that was the biggest concern, is that in the future, someone would just choose to always be remote, and I would want the board to have agency. Obviously, if someone was elected and had an illness and had to participate remotely, I would want the board to have agency to give them that opportunity. I wouldn't want a board member to feel like they had to participate if they were taking care of an ill family member or.
But it's an option.
Having the option. So I see value in it. I don't know if others do. We heard from a lot of people. There was a lot of emotion in the room that night, and it was not the time to discuss it. Now that we know we can get more restrictive, I don't know how the rest of the board feels.
We didn't fully answer the question about requiring a quorum to be here at Village Hall. We can do that.
We can
Okay.
do that. Okay, so
Those
what?
were the 2 concerns that I heard from the members of the public that were here that night, and I had concerns about the restrictive, wanting more restrictive language, because extenuating circumstances sounds pretty damn broad to me.
Yeah.
So those were the 2 things, if we could make it more restrictive, and at the time, we didn't think we could.
So I would, I think this is a really good start, and I think it would make sense to talk about it in a public hearing.
So
And
if,
have that I don't want to have that conversation now. I
Right.
want to have it in a public hearing.
I would say that we should direct our attorney, what are you thinking? You're going to say something.
No, I
What are
think
you thinking?
procedurally, there really is no mechanism to have a public
Yeah.
hearing. You certainly could have a public workshop.
Yeah,
Okay.
workshop.
And then have legislation drafted. Legislation is drafted and then move to public hearing. You can hear additionally from the public. But I think your idea, Dan, is to get a better input from the public in advance.
So let's schedule a
Workshop.
workshop.
and keep in mind, this thing's going to expire June 30th of 2024 anyway.
Yeah, but it's
So-
helpful.
It may.
It may, or it may be
Okay.
extended.
Right now, it is current form, yeah.
I mean, some of the discussion is that it may actually be extended, that this was just sort of a quick thing to do. But in the meantime, I mean, I still would like to have us do more research as well to bring into the workshop, That's my thought too. Yes, Justin?
Yeah, I'm surprised to see this on the agenda again. It's been on the agenda a couple of times. In a very recent meeting, we heard from a lot of members of the public who just didn't want us to go remote. They wanted to be able to come here and see their representatives in front of them. And they weren't concerned if occasionally somebody missed a meeting because they're out of town. I think this is really important for accountability, for our relationship with the village residents. And we've also had some specific issues with some trustees not showing up to many meetings in a row. I'm not confident that we can get this dialed in. I don't
Let's
think we need
stick
to talk
to the
about
law.
specifics. I don't trust our
I don't think you
ability.
should talk about Lily.
I have
Not here.
the floor, trustee
Okay,
Keating.
got it. Just stop
Please,
taking
please.
swipes.
Please,
We're not, we literally just said,
points of order
we're
here.
not gonna discuss our pros and cons right now. We're gonna have a workshop.
Okay.
And so you're going into this long thing.
Dan,
about
please,
what-
point of order. Trustee Lightgib has the floor. Trustee Lightgib has the floor.
Excuse me?
Please,
Corby?
no calling out in the room, otherwise please, no calling out.
Who
in the
was
room.
it?
Well, please,
Can we keep this?
I'm bringing this back to the board.
Who was it in the
Please,
audience?
Dan, I am going to ask you to please refrain from speaking right now. Trustee Lightgib has the floor, and we are discussing
Good.
having a workshop. And then I can bring it back to you. Okay.
As some people might be able to see, it's a little bit hard having meetings, whether we're in person or remote. I think this board has a lot to overcome. I am not in favor of changing this around at this point. The public has firmly told us that they're not in favor of doing this. And to me, this is just bringing up the exact same item again until perhaps we don't have enough members from the public complaining and saying this is not what they want. I'm not in favor of moving this forward. I would like to table it for the time being.
Okay, I appreciate your input, and I would like to say we have 1,500 residents in our village, and I think we heard roughly about 9 or 10. So I do think, I personally support the idea of a workshop. I think that's a healthy way to go. It will enable greater participation from more members of our community, and I don't think there's a downside to that. I think that's a healthy way to go. Dan, did you want to add anything to that?
No,
Okay.
I just want to stop wasting time.
I understand.
Just,
We all-
I could go over all the reasons
Yeah.
why I think we should, and it's an incredible waste of time. Justin, we have all heard what you have to say.
Okay.
Over and over and over again.
Okay.
We read your posts on social media that attack us. We hear you when you talk, okay? We don't need to go over it right now.
Okay, and
Thank you.
I respect everybody's input and everybody's opinions. And Renee, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I didn't put it on the agenda, but I'm willing to discuss it.
Yeah, and I think we would end up making a motion to have a workshop. I think that's a positive thing to do. Yes, I see, Dorothea, there's comments, I'm sure.
Hey,
Yeah.
Dorothy, can I ask, if these are comments about whether we should allow remote meetings, this is not the time for
We're going
that
to have a
discussion.
workshop, hopefully.
I understand, the board has set a policy that you allow public
Yep,
comment
this
after
is the
each
policy
agenda
we voted
item.
on.
So
Thank you.
I'm doing the job that the board has
Okay.
gave me.
Let
And
me
I
guess.
just want to say, I'm sorry,
Well,
and for the
let's-
employees and everybody in the room,
Mhm.
this is getting very uncomfortable from the audience and the board,
Mhm.
okay?
Amen.
Please try to, decorum, that's what we try to set here. Can we please do that right now? And it's not my job to lecture the board, but this is very uncomfortable. And I just want to let you know, this is making me very uncomfortable. And this is the first time I've ever had to say this in a public meeting. So let's please try to get along and get through the agenda. Thank you.
Yep, and I agree with our village clerk treasurer. Okay, so comments
Yes.
online, please.
Peggy Carabaris, at a previous meeting, didn't the board already reject taking this to a public hearing? Why is this being brought back? Our board of trustees needs to be accessible to the public as possible.
Thank you. Yep, and I think we,
And that's all I have at this time.
okay, great. I would entertain a motion that we would set a date for a workshop for the public.
Can we add it to another one of our code workshops or something like that so
Or a
that?
budget
Well,
one or something.
The budget we can't add to because planning actually has a meeting after us.
Yeah,
which
that's right.
I'm never thrilled with, but we do
And
have
actually,
to,
yeah, we need to focus on the budget.
we need the budget. We haven't scheduled the code workshop, so that is something we need to do.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to focus on making sure we get the budget meetings done.
Well,
first.
that's already in motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, at
So
the budget
this is something
meeting.
separate.
So do we want to say like,
Would the board like me to pull the board after the meeting?
Yeah,
And
why
I
don't we
can send
do
it out
that?
tomorrow,
Why
and
don't
look at the
we- yeah, why don't
calendar
we
and
do
see when
that?
we have a date.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think
Just-
it needs to be long. We need to just hear from more people
Yeah, sure.
and talk.
And I think you have some additional other code items, so maybe we can
Yeah,
combine it with.
okay.
Yeah,
since
maybe we
it
can
is
do it that
code.
way.
Okay,
Does that
Thank
make- Yep, that makes sense. We're good?
Yep.
Everybody's good?
Yep, yep, yep.
Okay, we're going to move on right now. Where are we here? Well, we did the review of the signage already with NISTOT, so we're going to move past that. The local law for the tax cap override, this is sort of the annual event.
yes, it is. This is something we do just in case of. It's just protective of the village's interest in case we do go over the tax cap inadvertently, or if we intend to go over the tax cap. It's always a good thing to pass this. This is a recommendation from NICOM, and we have done it since its inception.
And it's not an indicator that taxes will be raised, is the most.
No, it's
No,
not an
this is-
indicator in any shape or form
No.
at this point.
Question? I noticed when I was doing a little bit of reading on this that we were supposed to repeal this law or the tax cap if it's not used.
You
I
don't
think
want to
that's-
repeal that.
I think it's something from beginning in April 15th, 2020. If a local law to override the tax cap was adopted but not needed, the local law must be repealed. and the chief executive officer or budget officer must certify that such action was taken. This is from the NICOM handbook. I just want to make sure that before we adopt new practices before we repeal.
That doesn't make sense because this is to protect you against a future audit mainly.
Correct.
So if you repeal it,
Okay.
then it's no longer in effect when the audit happens, so you get banged.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly why you want to
That's
do
why you
it,
do
in
it.
case they come in 3 years from now and they discover that you actually went over that tax cap. It sets up a series of events that is very difficult for the village to go through, so I wouldn't want this removed.
Okay, I'm just curious about this part of the NICOM handbook.
I mean,
Look at.
I'll suggest that we get a hold of NICOM.
Yeah,
Sure, yeah.
yeah, that would be the
Because it doesn't
action
make
item.
any sense. Which is that the employee that,
This is under the section for tax cap in the NICOM handbook. I can forward this.
is it NICOM handbook for village officials or the NICOM, there's two handbooks?
Yeah,
It's-
just different ones.
Yeah, I believe it's for village officials, but I'll send you the page reference after this.
That'd be great.
Okay, let's follow up for sure.
I guess the other question that I had is, what is the date that we need to do this by? I know it's by the time that we adopt the budget, but personally, I would like to gain a little bit more understanding about the capital plans. We haven't discussed anything about the budget yet. We don't have any.
This has no relation to the budget. This is a protection for the budget. This has always been something we've done right away in January, so it's done by the time the budget is adopted. As we said, it doesn't indicate one iota whether we're going over the tax cap. It doesn't influence the budget in any shape or form. It protects the village if we do go over the tax cap. So it's just something we automatically put in place.
And per the recommendation of NICOM. You know, and I can't think, most municipalities do, villages do this. I mean,
Yes.
it's pretty standard.
It's been the same practice since I've been here for 10 years.
I was just hoping that it could be a little bit more intentional and based on some of the budget information.
In fact, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
That's okay, go ahead.
In fact, NICOM's advice is based on it being unintentional. I mean, the intent is that it never, not have any underlying intention. It's an oops provision.
Yeah, that's true. It's belt and suspenders. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the local law for the tax cap override.
Actually, we're just setting the public hearing.
Oh, setting the public hearing, I'm sorry, you're right.
Okay.
It's a public hearing.
It's February 9th.
Oh, I'm tired,
So
okay.
moved.
Which gives us the time to be sure that trustee Lightgiv's concerns are
Yeah,
addressed.
and in the interim, yeah, we can get that information, for sure. Okay, so what are we looking at?
I need a second. It's February 9th.
February 9th, on
At
February
7.
9th, is
Yep.
that, okay.
Seconded.
Roll call?
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Keating.
Aye.
Trustee Stetser.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have the resolution creating the short-term rental review committee. And Jeff, thank you for putting this together
Yeah, looks good.
and, you know, taking all the information and all the input from the board. Is there any additional?
Oh, it looks like everything was incorporated.
Yeah, I mean, it looks good to me.
So the only blanks that needed to be filled in was on page 1, and Dorothea has indicated that date was the 29th day of September.
Okay,
And then the other date is the report date,
The what date?
when you want the time frame in which
Report, yeah.
to get the report.
so we have to figure out, you know, factor in
Well,
enough
enough
time for the
time.
committee to do
Yeah.
the work and, you know, all
And
of that.
selecting a committee and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I mean, you've had a lot of familiarity with this. I mean, how many months really for them to turn the, you know, any thoughts?
We've never done
Say it.
that.
I know,
Maybe 6 months.
6 months, just within
Maybe
6 months?
I mean,
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting it together, up and running, they're doing
Right.
the
Soup
researching.
to nuts from passing the resolution.
right, when they run into an issue, they always can come to the board and the board can
Yeah.
extend it. I
Okay,
mean, it's one single issue compared to the comp plan or
Mhm.
something like
Right.
that.
okay, all right. So that would be, what date, from the, 6 months from the,
July sometime,
Yeah.
July,
Oh, boy.
July 31st.
July 31st?
I'm
Great.
just- no real,
Sold.
I have no real authority to suggest.
No, but I mean, I think it's just,
No, we can
it
exchange it.
sounds good to me. Okay, you've got that, Dorothea?
Sure.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution of the Village of Pittsburgh Board of Trustees creating a short-term rental review committee.
Seconded.
It's very
Roll call.
wordy.
It works. Trustee Stetser?
Aye.
Trustee Keating?
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, great.
You don't understand, the more words the better.
Okay, next up, the approval of either an RFP or an RFQ. The first one up is the RFP for the landscape consultant for the DPW and Arboretum Needs Assessment. Scott, you still on the line? You still with us? Scott? Hello?
He's there.
Hello?
Oh, there you are. Hello.
Here I am.
Yeah, okay, so thank you for putting this, you've really been doing a lot, thank you, for putting this together. So I think everybody's had an opportunity to take a look at this, and, did you have any questions for Scott? I think you really kind of covered a lot here.
I had one quick question
Yes,
about, so we've
Renee.
got the second one that says, meet with involved boards and community members to gain a solid understanding of the community's expectations of how this land is desired to be used when developed. And wasn't that one of the things we discussed at the last meeting? Like, we've already designated the land, and it seems like 3 and 4 cover the issues we had, which are meeting with the concerned village residents and the Friends of the Arboretum, and then meeting with the DPW and others to figure out how to use the 2 facilities. To me, 2 seems redundant with the other, with 3 and 4, especially since we've already designated it as Arboretum land. It's not, so I just wanted some clarity on that.
Well, excuse me, I tried to come up with something that was general, and it certainly is a draft.
Okay.
And I was assuming that you're bringing someone into the process that is not knowledgeable about many items, such as I was not very knowledgeable when we just did the survey portion. So keeping that in mind, I was trying to create a framework for someone to step into the situation and absorb what's necessary in order to make objective decisions as it affects the goal of the project. You're certainly welcome to edit and change anything that you would like there, and add more details or subtract. I also think one of the goals in mind as I put it together was to think, if I were the consultant coming into this project, what would entice me, perhaps, especially with the market we're talking about? What would entice me into wanting to do this project, and what would be the process and the procedure by which I would do it? And I think that's how I would do it. I think there are many opinions that have been placed that indicate that this is the way it is. I think you need, and I guess the way I drafted it is to allow someone a fresh approach to walk into this situation and to absorb all the facts that are available and come up with an objective recommendation as to how you treat these 2 particular different uses, and entertain, both parties, so everyone can cooperate with each other.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. I know Lily isn't here, and I remember from the last meeting, that was one of her concerns, just about how much that part would be into. So thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, I think it would be very hard for someone not having the history of what's taken place over the years and the particular opinions that are being put forth. I think you kind of have to start at the beginning and bring that person up to speed, and they have to do the fact finding and their due diligence, and then I think they will give you an objective take on what needs to be done and how to do it. And I guess one thing that I didn't really emphasize in there that I thought about after I issued it was, this would seem to me to be a great project to qualify for a grant. And we probably want someone with grant skills as well, so that they can help you get the money to fund this effort. Not unlike what we spoke about along the canal earlier on in this meeting. If you have some monies that can offset the cost of this, I would think that would be a good thing.
I like that. Yeah, thank you. Any other, did you have
No,
any?
that's it.
Anything
Thank you.
else?
Thank you, Scott.
Yep. Yep, okay, Justin, yeah?
Yeah, thank you, Scott. I think that your work on the RFP is, as the board directed. Respectfully, I'd like to dissent from the opinion that this is the right direction to go in. As I've stated in previous meetings, it's just not necessary to lump together the DPW needs assessment and the DPW project with the Arboretum. This is a piece of land that's separately delineated. It's been set aside in terms of acreage and in terms of the location and the boundaries. Behind the doing this planning with the Arboretum needs assessment is going to get us in people who are less qualified in both areas, and it's going to reduce the quality of those opinions and ultimately derail this project for longer than it needs to be. I think that we can proceed just like the town did with something like a landscape consultant like Sue Steele, who did a really great job over there, and we're really clear to proceed. This is something that's overwhelmingly wanted by village residents, and I think it could be really great for the community. And I feel like this is just one setback after another to tie these two things together. I noticed that the RFP also has outreach to the Friends of the Arboretum. I very much appreciate a lot of the work and opinions that the Friends of the Arboretum have expressed, and they've come in to talk to this board and share their opinions. I don't feel like we need to, I feel like what this is doing is keeping them at arm's length, keeping residents who are working to develop this park at arm's length by having them engaged with a consultant. I really don't feel like that's necessary if we just go ahead and do the planning piece by piece for this work in that village-owned parcel.
Thank you for your input.
Thank you.
Okay, Dan, did you want to add anything? No. You're good? Okay. Any comments online?
No.
Okay, yes,
I have a
Bob.
statement I'd like to read from the Friends of the Arboretum. And I
Sure.
would ask for more than 3 minutes because we looked at it in
The
detail.
meeting's running long, if you can really condense things, and you can provide a copy to our board as well, too, so, which you would need to do.
Ask that it
Yeah,
be made part of the minutes. This is obviously an important issue for us that we have spent a lot of time studying. There's a lot of detail here, a lot of issues I want to go over that we have not really discussed yet, and I will try to go through this as quickly as possible.
I'm not going to.
okay, all right,
Because
that's fine. Dorothea, can you start timing, please?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Because the RFP was not in the original packet, I really only had it since yesterday because I had to come into the office to request it.
Actually,
I would ask in the
It
future.
was in the packet,
it was in the
actually, you missed it.
updated packet that was
It
posted
was in
on
the
Tuesday.
updated packet, but
Yeah,
not the
it was in the
original, so I
packet.
really only had hours, so there may be some
Mhm.
typos in here, so I ask for your patience, okay? The Friends of the Robert C. Arboretum is a group of over 100 residents who have joined together to assist the village in the development of the 10 acres of village-owned land designated by the village board for the purpose of developing an arboretum showcasing a native deciduous hardwood ecosystem and providing a wildlife habitat and a buffer for the Erie Canal Preserve. On July 20th, 2020, the village board passed a resolution declaring 10 acres of the village DPW as public parkland. The board's action was based on the results of the 2018 village-wide survey that indicated 80% of respondents preferred to preserve the area as public green space, and the recommendation in the village's award-winning comprehensive plan that, quote, the best and highest value for the undeveloped part of the DPW property was to permanently designate it as a public park. As you know, I have over 35 years professional experience in architecture, historic architecture, as well as experience in preservation planning and municipal planning. My professional experience meets the National Park Service's professional qualification standards for historic preservation published in the Code of Federal Regulations 36 CFR Part 61. Due to my professional background, the village board considered several other factors in determining the appropriate boundary between the park and the portion of the property that will remain a DPW facility. For 40 years, the public enjoyed unrestricted access and actively used the entire 10 acres designated as parkland. Under New York state law, the public's unrestricted use had already turned the 10 acres of land into parkland. Using GIS, I had determined that the boundary between the DPW area and the 10-acre area fell along the edge of the existing spruce grove and a natural berm. These existing features provide an effective visual and physical buffer between the two uses in disparate uses. The area under the DPW yard was leveled by filling it with gravel, rock, and sand when the village acquired the parcel for its sewer plant and other facilities in the 1930s. Due to its history, the DPW area does not have a fertile base suitable for cultivating vegetation. The north 10 acres of the property contains both undisturbed areas as well as areas that were used as a landfill for organic brush. The area was capped with soil when the practice of landfilling was discontinued. The 10 acres remains exceptionally fertile, as is evidenced by the profusion of secondary tree growth that has overtaken much of the property over the last few decades. The planning of the adjacent Erie Canal Preserve was a town project which involved a great deal of collaboration with the village. 33 acres of total open space has been protected by the town and the village working together. Part of our mutual understanding to ensure the success of the whole project was that the north 10 acres of the DPW property be preserved to both provide a buffer around the large wetland that straddles the boundaries between the two properties. The concept of a native arboretum was conceived because it will provide symbiotic habitat for species like native gray tree frogs that require different environments during different parts of their life cycle. Changing the arboretum boundaries now would betray the informal agreement achieved between the town and the village in the collaborative process that created the public green space that has been designated. The current DPW facilities were created when the village had a water department and a sewer plant located where the small office park is today. Those services are gone. Due to my experience in architectural design, I know the existing DPW area could be laid out much more efficiently. I also know that during my 28 years serving as mayor, not once was that area insufficient for the demands of the DPW. The accumulation of trash and retired equipment must be managed, but management of any facility requires responsible and constant management. We know that in a historic walkable village, the standard predominant land-consuming design employed by most contemporary consultants and engineering firms is not the best solution for a compact village where every inch must be used wisely. Back in 2007, the town of Pittsburgh closed the James Branch Library when the new library opened. The town sold off the historic James home, which is now a single-family home again. The town intended to sell off the 3 vacant lots behind the home, which together comprised about 4 acres. Nearby residents then reminded the town that the area under New York state law had become parkland because the town had allowed unrestricted use of the wooded area during the past decades of the town's ownership. The town wisely did the right thing, canceled the plans to sell the area, and formally designated it as Rodney James Park. I made similar presentations explaining the boundaries of the Arboretum to the board at the February 2021 meeting, where the board passed a resolution to designate the 10 acres of parkland as a native tree arboretum and fulfillment of the informal understanding previously agreed to by the town and the village. Additional explanation of the boundaries occurred at several village board meetings when the Friends of the Arboretum appeared before the board. We are confused that why, after extensive, clear discussions of the Arboretum boundaries, the village is considering spending more taxpayer dollars to revisit the issue once again. We are perplexed why 2 projects are being linked together. Planning a native tree arboretum and municipal garage require very different expertise. You would not have a math teacher teach history. Both projects require a specialized consultant. Both projects will require preservation professionals that meet the requirements of the Code of Federal Register 36 CFR Part 61. In the Arboretum, state funds were used to construct Frog Pond Trail, meaning that a SHPO 14-9 review will be required. The old spruce plantations, trolley underpass, and Auburn Trail grade bed constitute landscape features that possess historic significance. While the Arboretum is a project that can be completed incrementally over many years, the garage is a huge capital expense that will be best if completed in a short time frame. The boundary between the two has already been determined, and the 2 projects have very different programs and schedules. As we have already established, forestry is a Type 2 action under SEQR, whereas the garage project, due to its location next to the canal, will require a Type 1 SEQR review. The DPW property planning will also require a preservation professional. Certainly, we want a facility compatible with our irreplaceable historic canal view sheds and the village's status as a unique canal town and a historic cultural landscape has been cited by Katie Camo in her 2015 successful submission to expand the Village National Register District. The pump-out dock near the DPW garage was built with a $17,000 New York State Canal Corporation grant. The work included connecting the existing DPW sewer in the DPW yard on our property. This means that because state funds were used, all subsequent work is subject to a SHPO 1409 review. Because some of the work was done in the canal or waterway subject to Army Corps review, it requires a more stringent Section 106 federal review, as will subsequent future reviews for the DPW facilities. The village garage is well over 50 years and therefore potentially eligible for listing on the National Register. The garage is situated next to the Erie Canal, a National Historic Landmark. At the very least, an architect or preservation planner and a landscape architect meeting the requirements of Code Federal Regulations 36 CFR Part 61 will be required. Because the landscape RFQ was not included in the meeting packet, I had to stop in the village office on Wednesday to request a copy. This gave our board only a few hours to review and respond to the many shortcomings in the RFQ. There has been a disturbing trend of dropping items into the agenda at the last minute, thus depriving the public of adequate time to prepare for the meeting. The Friends respectfully request that this practice be immediately curtailed. Please excuse the typos, as I did not have a lot of time to write this. Given the importance of both projects, the Friends request that the projects be separated so both may proceed in a time-appropriate schedule in the most financially prudent way. I must repeat that it does not make sense to spend money on repeating research that has already been completed and reopening issues that have already been resolved. We look forward to continuing to assist the village in development of its largest and most unique park in full compliance with the original vision approved by the village board. Thank you for your full consideration of the issues we have brought to your attention this evening. Haste makes waste in planning. Let's take our time and do this properly. The Friends request that the full text of this statement be included in the minutes of this meeting. Sincerely, Robert C. Corby, President, Friends of the Village Arboretum. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your input, and please make the copy available to the clerk. Okay, Scott, did you have anything to add?
No, I don't have anything to add. I think we've spoken about this several meetings that I've attended. I think the last meeting that I attended last month, I think I heard similar comments, and to my knowledge, the project is subject to seeker. We're talking about one parcel of land, and seeker asks the lead agency, whoever the lead agency may be, I suppose it's the village board, take a hard look at the project inclusive of both uses. I mentioned segmentation. I don't believe that anybody has typed this action as a type 2, and I think we went through that once before with Steve. So those are my comments.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Yes, Renee.
So Scott touched on the segmentation, which we talked about last time, because I asked why we couldn't separate these two, and segmentation was the reason. The second thing I heard is a common thread. I can't remember if Trustee Lightgift said it, but it was definitely in Mr. Corby's presentation, is a concern that the boundary of the Arboretum will change, meaning it will shrink in some way, and I've heard that over and over. We've already designated the amount of land that's in state law, so that cannot be reduced regardless of what happens in this next phase, correct? I keep hearing it over and over that people are concerned it's going to shrink the Arboretum.
That is correct.
Okay, so we can't take, even if we determine DPW needs, X amount of whatever, it's a done deal. We can't take any land from the Arboretum.
Please, we're back to the board. We've heard your comments and we appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yes, continue, Renee.
That's all.
Okay.
I wanted some clarity
That
on
is
that.
all correct.
Okay.
I just wanted to follow up on that, if I may. So Trustee Stetzer, it does seem that we're in agreement that the area is going to stay the same. I'm concerned that this looks like, are we going to put the DPW building in the middle of the Arboretum right now, where that area is? I don't want the
What?
shape to change either, or the boundaries, and I haven't heard that agreement
I
from
think
the
that's a
board.
specious question, actually.
Well,
I'm not even, I'm a little surprised. We have designated land as an arboretum, not for a DPW facility.
So-
That doesn't even make sense.
Can we all, well, that's great. I would really love to clarify that then as a
It's been
board.
clarified, it's been on the record, it's been voted by the board. We
So-
have a survey, Scott, you completed a survey that evidently had never been done of this parcel, and it has defined the boundaries. So I think, we asked and answered. I think we're not putting a
Thank you for-
DPW building in the middle of an arboretum. It's an arboretum, and we all want an arboretum.
Great, well, this is helping me to clarify things in my own mind then.
Okay.
Now, in the survey that Scott Harder performed, later on, lines were added for the Arboretum boundary as depicted in the comprehensive plan. Are we also in agreement that those are essentially the lines of the Arboretum as it will remain?
I'd like our engineer to speak to that. Scott, did you hear that?
I heard the question, we showed the line as it was provided to us. And if you look at the survey that we did based on that line, because the information on which that line was based included lands not owned by the Village of Pittsford. It included some lands owned by the Canal Corporation and some lands that were owned by the railroad. So when the survey was done, it tightened that up, and I think it was 13 acres plus or minus that was used, now came down to 11.2. And as a result, in holding that line as we did, that was provided to us, and the current survey shows it, then there's 9.2 acres technically that goes with the side for the Arboretum, and 2 acres, I guess, that goes with the DPW. So, but I think you're getting into the details for which the consultant could be helpful in reconciling, what went on, what the basis was for that determination, what you have to work with now, and how you best use the lands.
So, Scott, sorry for interrupting, Scott. If it's 9.2 that is left for the Arboretum, then there's going to have to be a carve-out of what was intended to be DPW land to meet the 10 acres. And I assume that's the line that our consultant is going to find,
Right.
Maximizing both the quality of both uses.
Thank you. That is also consistent with my understanding, Scott. Essentially you get a 9.2 when you take the comp plan line and you constrain that within the subset that's village owned. And that sounds about right from my mapping as well. I guess my own thoughts on my understanding of segmentation is not necessarily a reason to make this one particular project. And this may be incorrect, but I understood segmentation as doing a small project in one area and then getting approval for that under less stringent standards, and then doing another project in the same area and avoiding a larger, more comprehensive review by kind of stacking them in that way. In this case, you're really looking at two projects. They should each receive different approvals, even though they're on what happens to be the same parcel of land. But that's just my understanding, and maybe incorrect there
They
too.
have to coexist with each other. The question of, keeping our yard straight. Our yard is as straight as it can be. There's stuff that we do have, our spoils, that need to be stored somewhere. Currently, we can't dump brush over the town because their yard is full. What do we do in that case? Now we need open area to be able to bring brush in because it's expected of us to pick up brush, trees, Christmas trees, anything like that, to be able to store it until we get rid of it. What do we do with that?
And isn't the town's asking for help in that too? Because they're,
Which we have to extend
Take some of their-
as, courtesy because they do it for
Sure.
us. They don't have to, I guess. But it's just another aspect of how we have to function as a city. So the whole yard that is cut off is like 2 acres. We lose a functioning part of it.
And I think these conversations that you're having are exactly why you want a consultant to come in and help go through all these particulars so that everyone is satisfied with the final result. I mean, I've been to a number of meetings such as this with you all before, We've had similar conversations that kind of get into the specifics of how you think this is going to play out. But I think if you don't start the process and follow through with the process step by step and thoughtfully go through all the aspects that you're needing to consider, you're going to continue to have meetings like this with what if scenarios, and you're not going to get to the finish line that you say you want to get to.
Agreed. So we have this RFP in front of the board. Is there any, Dorothy, is there any? Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay, Mike Reynolds, 35 Church Street. Bob Corby's arguments are cogent and well-founded. The Arboretum should not be lumped together with the DPW in an RFP. Art Pierce, 70 State Street. Would like to extend my appreciation for the board to allow a village resident to provide a comprehensive detailed overview of the cultural land use, zoning, and planning issues associated in the consideration of the future development of both the DPW and Arboretum properties. The board acceptance to hear this degree of input by the public is what the board should encourage and exercise on all projects and applications.
Art,
There was Art Pierce.
State Street, I can never remember.
I know. State Street.
So I have
Yes, Renee.
another,
Sure.
one of the concerns I heard was that, and I heard it at the last meeting, was that the consultant who would be a good landscape architect fit for the Arboretum piece of this would not be able to satisfy the DPW piece of this. So if we, which I don't know, we haven't received any feedback yet. So if
We
we
can have
put the
Scott speak to that too.
if we put the RFP out
Mhm.
and we aren't satisfied with the responses we receive, we can change course, could we not?
Yes.
Okay.
There's another aspect to this too, in which we've had trouble getting anybody in here to do this work because everybody is busy doing other work where it's just not, there's not enough of it to be worthwhile to come and do the work, so combine the two as an intention to get somebody in here to look at it.
Scott, can you speak to the different types of needs, relative to a consulting firm?
I agree. I think in these RFPs, you want to, especially in this marketplace, cast a wide net and see what you get. I think we have a number of RFPs that have gone out, and we have not a lot of respondents that came back. But it's an educational process to go through to zero in on the right consultant. And I think Renee is right. Let's see what we get. You don't have to, take a consultant, just like you don't have to take a bidder. You can take a look at the people who respond, and hopefully we get quite a few, and decide which one is the best fit. I think we indicated in our selection criteria, that the board has, liberties in making this choice, and the board always has the right to reject the entire process and start it over again, as we've had to do, not because we were dissatisfied with respondents, but because we didn't get any. So you always have the ability to put the brakes on, shift gears, do whatever. What I tried to do on your behalf here was to just give you something to get started on the path forward that I think you need to take to get to the finish line that I referenced.
Thank you. And I appreciate your work. I think it's pretty comprehensive and, certainly gives a good scope for what we're looking for. Oh, yes, Steve?
Am I allowed to ask a question on this subject?
Sure.
All right, two things. Cannot, and I'm not saying it would be, cannot you go back to the state and change the designation? Is that available? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, it's possible.
Well, yeah,
that's.
Well, the reason I'm asking you, to me, as an outsider, or as a person who's been in business and lives in this village more of my life than I do at home now, I feel like the DPW is the redheaded stepchild that's getting the crumbs. They aren't, the arboretum's very important. Nobody doesn't want the arboretum. It's a great thing for this community, but I think you're overlooking the fact that they need space.
Well, I mean, I think that's really what this
Right,
RFP is
I'm saying
addressing.
the outsiders who are saying, don't do this, don't
Mhm.
do this, and I think that their needs should come before. They serve this village, that DPW does, and their space and their needs should come as equal as anything else, because they serve the residents of this village.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks,
If there was somewhere else for us to transplant to create an 11.2 arboretum, that would be great.
But there isn't, there's no space.
We work with what we have. We have an RFP in front of us, and I'd like to move forward here with the board. So we do a motion. What do we do here, Jeff?
Yeah, you
Make a motion.
authorize Scott
Yeah.
to work with the village staff to issue the RFP.
Issue the RFP.
Like you have it every other time you issue an RFP.
What you said.
Yeah, my suggestion would put a due date for
Mhm.
the proposal for the RFP
Mhm.
is 2/16. We post it by next week.
Do you think that's enough
You
time?
think it's enough time?
That seems super
What do you
short
think?
to me.
You can go longer. I was trying to get it in for the second
Yeah.
meeting of February.
Oh, that's
Oh.
a good point. Well, we could see if we get any.
Give it a shot.
Yeah, let's give it
Yeah.
a shot.
I mean, you
I
can
like
always
that, because then we
extend
can, then we can
it.
turn it around.
We can always do an
Right.
addendum and extend the
Okay.
time as needed.
Help with
I'm just
concerns
trying
about
to,
slowing down.
I think
Sure.
we'll get it posted right away. We can get it up on the website tomorrow, but if
Yeah.
everything's
Okay.
kosher with the
We're back to
document.
the board now, thank you.
Well,
We're back to the board, please.
Okay.
So we need to move this along. We have this RFP in front of us, so,
I'll make a motion to move the RFP. What is the motion? To
To
approve the RFP or to?
distribute, yeah, approve the RFP
Okay.
and work with direct our engineer, right?
Okay.
To work with our village staff to issue the RFP
Right.
to be due, or what will we say,
well, yeah, you're gonna have a due date of,
February
2/16.
16th?
yeah, you're gonna issue the RFP with a due date of February 16th.
Okay,
Okay, so moved.
you got that?
I got that.
Seconded.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Lightgev.
No.
Trustee Keating.
Yes.
Trustee Stetser.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Ah,
Motion passes.
okay, great. Next up, the RFP for Southwood and Sutherland Street. It just keeps getting bigger, that RFP. So, I mean, as you all know, we did put the RFP out initially for South and Wood. We didn't get any responses. Again, we're all addressing these difficulties with, getting responses. So we added on Sutherland Street because that is also on the list. So hopefully, if we reissue this RFP with Sutherland added in, it certainly for bidders gives them a much larger project. And we may get a better response. Yeah, exactly.
So there are no other changes, we're just combining them.
Yeah, it's just, it's because it's in the hopper anyway,
Yep.
so. Scott, did you want to add anything to that?
I don't think I heard everything that you said because I got a little message on my screen that said my internet connection is unstable, and then everything went quiet for a while, but now it's back. So if you.
Yeah, all it was that, we just simply are reissuing this RFP. We have expanded it to include Sutherland. Hopefully it'll kind of sweeten the pot for anybody, wanting to respond and bid. So that was really, all we're doing at this point. And my question to you is there anything else you'd like to add?
In addition to adding Sutherland, we also indicated more strongly at Wood Street as well. And it's also with the sidewalk ramps. And I guess prior to putting this out, I'd like to speak with Zach on some of the cost information that I've come up with. One of the questions that came from a couple of the consultants was, what the budget was for the project. And I think I have some numbers to share with you, and invariably the consultants are going to look at the approximate construction cost, and they're going to estimate their fee from that. And if that fee seems enticing, then they'll likely respond, and vice versa. So I think we should be prepared to maybe establish a budget number for this to go out because that seemed to generate, that seemed to be a common question that we got in a variety of these RFPs. So, but I just wanted to mention that we did include Wood Street. I also indicated the project bounds a little more specifically. There was a question that came from a consultant on that. So I think, we're providing sufficient detail. I hope, given the market that we described, that we can get some respondents that way.
Okay, no, thanks, and thanks for revisiting that. So, you need a date?
I'd go with February 16th again. It seems very popular to me right now. I would correct it. Also, the previous thing would be due by 10 a.m. because we do have to put time.
Oh, time certain, you have to have time certain.
So I'd say this one would be 10:30.
They can queue up.
Yeah. Hopefully we will have a queue.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for that. Any other input on this? I mean, I think we're just expanding it a bit.
I think this is exactly what we said we talked about doing at the last meeting.
Yeah, we did. So, a motion? Anybody?
Oh, I messed up the last one, so I'm going to let
Oh,
somebody.
I thought you were on a roll.
Somebody else do it. Oh, my God. All right, I'll make a motion to.
It's a tough crowd tonight.
To move this new bid that combines all of our other bids, and I'm scrolling up because my computer's slow to find out what the title of this is.
The South Street sidewalk
There
ramp
you
and
go.
street improvements, Wood Street and Sutherland Street
Yeah,
improvements.
With a February 16th, 10:30 a.m. deadline.
Okay, we have a motion.
Seconded.
Okay, roll call.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Keating.
Aye.
Trustee Stetser.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, next up, the RFQ for architecture and building code services relative to the 75 Monroe project. Again, Scott, thank you.
Sure.
I heard a little croak on the interval.
No, I'm sorry.
No, all good. And again, this was, has been discussed, with the board to have additional resources overseeing this project. And Scott has the engineering piece, and now this is the RFP for the other components of this project. So.
Scott, I read this earlier, and remind me, is this a fixed bid or is this hourly?
It would have to be hourly, and the way I did that RFP was, if you would like to go out and as we just spoke about with the prior RFPs and go into the marketplace and see who can perform the service, that's the way that RFP has been designated. I received some information a month ago or so, indicating that perhaps I might be interested in doing the engineering component, and I said that I would be willing to do that, but I don't have the architecture background or the landscape architecture background. So I contacted a couple of colleagues with whom I work, and they can team with me if you would like to use us, or we can put it out to the general consultants and go that route. But I was just offering that as an alternative to the board if they wanted to do that.
Well, I heard a couple things in there. So one is, and let's take the simple one first. Is it possible to put this out as a fixed bid? I just don't, I've never had good success with, problems with both kinds, but fixed bid tends to get, it just stays within bounds a little bit better. Hourly can get very expensive. So that's one concern. The second, actually, yeah, we'll answer that first, and then we'll go to this.
I think you're right. Unfortunately, I don't think we know exactly how this project is going to roll out in terms of needs for, say, code review and site observations periodically. I don't think, I haven't met with the developer specifically to know exactly how that's going to go, to the extent that I could come up with, say, a budget number. But I think any consultant who would be looking at this project, given the sensitivity of this project especially, if I were to take a look at this RFP, I would never in a million years try to zero in on a fixed fee because there's too many variables.
Yeah. So the question, well, I wonder if there's a scoping phase at the beginning of it that gets, so even if it is an hourly, it's not to exceed a certain amount, that there are checkpoints put in along the way. I just don't want to get into a situation like we were in with our council for the last 10 years, where it's just, you know, an unlimited number of hours that they can draw on.
Right.
So you can see what I'm trying to avoid. If there's a way to word that in the RFP that says, you know, hey, we'll do a scoping phase or a not to exceed, or it is hourly during the scoping phase, and then it becomes fixed bid at a certain point once we know everything. I don't know if we would ever consider something like that.
Am I to understand that these expenses will be incurred by the applicant, by the developer?
Right.
Yeah.
Can I further clarify on that point? So we've used an escrow arrangement for the rest of our costs. Would this basically be where, since this is hourly, we would take a lump sum and then it would be kind of paid from that?
Right, and it would be
escrow?
drawn down, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, Dorothea, if you want to add to that, but that's pretty
No,
much how
that's
it works.
exactly it.
Yeah.
This is going to be the tool. They would get the quotes from, I assume, the engineers, all the parties involved, and we'd establish the escrow. The board would work with 75 to do that.
Yeah, they would probably give some general number for sure.
Right, and
So
the
it's not just,
percentage
you
would
know.
be funded, and then we'd work from.
Right, exactly.
I'd be much more in favor of an hourly during the scoping phase and then an agreed upon fixed bid at a certain point. Just doesn't make a lot of sense to give blank checks no matter who's paying for it, because that just incentivizes it dragging on forever and ever.
Yeah, I think the developer, based on the communication I've had, you know, certainly wants a budget and certainly doesn't want to spend a lot of money in this direction. And when I was asked, you know, what it's going to cost, my reply is pretty much, let's sit down and figure out what the project is and how it's going to roll out and what time is likely going to become necessary, and then use that time times the hourlies and come up with a number. And I think that when you do come up with a budget number that way, that's fair. And then in this business, as I think many of us know, there are always unknowns. So there should be a provision that allows you to revise that number as well if something happens that changes the dynamic for what you thought you were going to do versus what you find yourself doing.
So I'm very much in favor of an hourly during the scoping phase to be followed by a fixed bid proposal once we're a little into it. As for your second question of would you want your group to do the engineering and then a partner of yours to do the architecture side of things, definitely open to viewing the qualifications of that team. And is there any harm in putting it out to RFP and then you and your partner group are one of the people that responds to that RFP? Just so that we keep the process, keep following the process.
Yeah, I think you're correct in that interpretation, and I did contact the two individuals with who I would propose a team, and I did get their statement of qualifications.
Great.
But I think to create a level playing field, I think we should be part of the pack, and put it out there so that the board can say you had a fair process.
Yep, good.
Sure, that's great. Okay.
So how then do we change the RFQ to reflect that we'd like to do hourly for the scoping phase and eventually get to a fixed bid? I don't know how you write that kind of thing, Scott. I know you write it in a work, but how's that?
Let me try to revise that draft. Just to say that, I know that the developer is anxious to get things going because they want to start construction this spring. So I can probably work on that in the next few days. When do you folks convene again?
Well, 2 weeks on our
Yeah, it's
next
our next
meeting.
meeting, the
So we
26th.
have a budget meeting where we could we add
Oh, budget
to
meeting.
reviewing
You
it
could.
next week?
Do that next
If we
week.
needed to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so our budget meeting is, when is that, Wednesday?
Yeah.
Would you be able to maybe tweak that a bit for us on Wednesday?
Yeah, but I think that those are good comments, and I think I'm just processing it in my mind right now, but I think I can come up with some language that addresses what Dan is saying and hopefully is timely enough to get this out there.
Okay, and Trustee Lightfoot, I think you had a
Actually,
question.
I'm okay. I
Oh,
figured out the
okay,
answer.
he's
Thank you.
good for now. Okay, so, yes,
Public comment.
Okay.
You ready?
Yep.
Okay, Peggy Caraveras. Regarding Sutherland Street, how will the water line for 75 Monroe, removal of street trees and the potential for changing these plans to place the water line in the road affect Sutherland Street project?
Zach can speak to that. It's not
I
in-
think it was determined that the water line that's going to be running down Sutherland is going to be shifted off of the road through the right of way into the school's property. So it's no longer.
It's an agreement that's been signed off by the Pittsford Central School District. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah,
Okay. That was for the
Yeah.
previous RFP.
yes, right,
Sorry.
exactly, yeah, so it's
Okay,
changed.
so now Peggy has another question. Regarding 75 Monroe, does the RFP cover off-site construction as well? This includes the Monroe Avenue changes in the Sutherland Street waterline project.
It includes the entire project.
Yeah.
Whatever needs to be reviewed.
And then we have a speaker,
Okay,
okay? Mr. Ferris, you're able to speak?
Yes, I just question, and no offense to Scott Harder, he's an excellent engineer, but I think a project like this will probably require a bigger firm where you don't have three different parties trying to assign responsibilities. This will probably require a daily supervision of that project, the scope that it is. And I think that it should be drawn very broadly to get people bidding on it. I think if it appears a person drafting the RFP as an insider, that's not a positive, and I think it does present some conflict. Again, no offense, Scott, you did a good job for the village and the town. So just want to share that observation.
yeah, I'd like to speak to that. Actually, Scott is incredibly familiar with the project. He's worked on this project and understands it really from the inception of the project. And there's also, I would say, probably almost every engineering firm in this area has done work for this developer. And Scott, have you ever done work for the developer?
No, I haven't. And I guess to respond to that, and I can appreciate the question. I was involved in the review of this project when it was first proposed and went through seeker and its original approval. And so one of the things that I would need to do in order to get further up to speed, and I think I mentioned it in the RFP, whether it be me or anyone else, would be to find out what has changed, what the conditions of approval are, to refresh my memory. But I think I have a lot of good background in this project, and I think I know how to look out for the village's best interests. And quite honestly, I'd like to see the project completed to a good level, and that some of the issues that still remain from what was done previously, such as the ponding water and other things out there, I'd like to see those be resolved, and I'd like to see a good quality project when it's all done, just from a personal standpoint, if nothing else. So I think I offer an advantage that way. And I think I've looked out for you folks for many years with the same reasoning. So I think that's the difference between myself and a bigger firm. Yes, I have no conflict of interest, and the individuals with whom I propose to work have no conflict of interest either. I think that's an advantage.
Doing that, Scott. Thank you. Reviewing your qualifications as one of the bidders, I think that's terrific.
Thanks, Scott. Yep, any other comments?
I have one more.
Yep, sure.
Art Pierce, 70 State Street, suggests that, as is a common practice in the industry, along with the issuance of RFPs, that an invitation be sent out to potential architecture engineering professionals to attend a pre-bid meeting at which the project work scope is presented. Would best for a lump sum bid with hourly rates of all team members and an architectural engineering firm for use in addressing change orders due to errors and omissions and changes in work scope as the project advances.
Good idea.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, thanks, Art. Any others?
No.
Yep. Yep.
Can we go back to the 3-minute timing?
Yep.
This will be quick. As somebody with 35 years experience in the profession of architecture and with great experience working for firms that did this kind of work, I think the RFP is very vague. I think based on Mark IV's construction record and communities from Ithaca to Greece, you need somebody who is a building envelope and materials expert, and an architecture firm that has expertise in flashing, rainwater disposal, windows, fire safety for multifamily construction. It is a specialty, and you should specifically cite it in your RFP. In the same way for the site plan, we know many of the issues that were contentious through the approval process, including the landscaping, the type of trees, the size of trees, the location of trees. All of that should be cited in your RFP, so you actually get somebody who will respond and be effective to the issues that we know you will have that need to be supervised in the construction. And I can tell you, this is what you do if you work in the industry. This is the type of RFP that you expect, is one that is very specific, that will address the specific issues to this project, which of course is the largest in the history of the village.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
I'm clear on this.
Okay. Any other comments from the board at this point? Sure.
I'm not experienced in architecture. It sounds like some of those concerns about building envelope as well as landscaping could be helpful to the RFP. I'm wondering if the board wants to consider asking Mr. Harder to also add some of those details along with the revisions.
Scott, do you have any thoughts on that?
I can certainly add that to the RFP. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that at all. In fact, more than happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
It's a tricky thing. I want you to be specific. We all want you to be specific, Scott, and these are good ideas. The challenge becomes you're then looking for something that is unattainable. You're looking for a purple squirrel, you know? So hopefully we can.
There's an image.
Hopefully you can get some good detail in there that addresses those specific expertise areas, but isn't going to scare away because, you know, we do need to fill this role.
Okay, so Scott, you're going to be doing some tweaks and bringing it back to us on Wednesday.
Yes.
Maybe you could take a look at that component as well. And I did like Art's suggestion about, what was it, what did he call it again, a pre something?
Kind of like a walkthrough or.
Yeah, I like that idea.
You can do that as a recording. It doesn't even need to be a live thing. You can just have a recording that's made available to people. Scott, could you deliver that on Tuesday? I know we just took a day, but this is really important. We want to make sure we can read it before we have to vote on it on Wednesday.
I think I'd like to also reach out to the developer, ask the developer if he has some type of a construction schedule that he's trying to hit and how he's staging this, the sequence of construction and that sort of thing, so we can get an idea of the duration, construction duration, and when these various needs will occur. I think with respect to the question that came about a pre-bid meeting, we tend to do pre-bid meetings with contractors more so than consultants. And we tend to respond to the consultants as we've done, you know, through, especially now with email and such. I think the market being what it is, I think you'd be hard pressed to find consultants showing up for a pre-bid meeting. But I think you can still achieve the same goal by providing them with, the best information you have, not in terms of what you're looking, not only in terms of what you're looking for, but the developer's intended schedule ahead and what the needs may be as that schedule begins to occur.
No, that's a fair point. Yeah. Thank you.
We actually have Mr. DeMarzo would like to speak.
Oh, okay.
Mr. DeMarzo, you're good to speak?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, Chris.
Hi, thank you very much for taking the time to look at this RFP. I would just say that, with regard to Scott's question, our timing is that our engineering drawings have been ready to be submitted for a week or two now. Our intent is to get in the ground in the beginning of March. So, the faster we can get an RFP done, consultant hired, post a letter of credit for you, and get it reviewed, these weeks and months fly by. I completely agree with Dan that, an hourly bid is not reasonable. This can go on forever. Mayor, you remember I had BME submit a very specific scope of what needs to be done. I think that Scott Harder has that scope. And it also even had a time frame for each item that needed to be done. So a scope could be very easily done.
Well, that's
with a fixed bid budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll pick this up on Wednesday.
Yep.
And Scott, if you can get it to us on Tuesday, that'd be great. And if you can't, so be it. We'll take time in the meeting to read it.
No, I'll get it to you on Tuesday, and I hope, I hope that addresses the items that we've spoken about tonight reasonably well. You're certainly free to revise it come Wednesday as well.
Very good.
Okay, thanks, Scott, for that. Also, as part of this project, there's the Comida, just a letter of support that is requested from the developer, that our board issue a letter in support of their application for Comida. And you have that information. Did you have any questions about that?
My only question was, did our council review this?
The Comida letter?
Yeah.
Wouldn't be me. Dan Spitzer.
It would be Spitzer.
Can we run it by, because it does say things that I want to make sure are true.
Okay, then why don't we do this? We'll bring it back on Wednesday.
Okay.
And it's part of the package.
So
that makes sense.
Do you want me to just send that to Chris? I'm sorry, Dan.
We'll send it right out.
Okay.
We'll get it going. Yeah. That's the action item then.
I'll send it tomorrow morning.
Yeah. Okay,
It's
so.
just given the history of this thing
Sure.
and how words
I think it's all
matter.
good. Absolutely. Thank you. No, that's all good. Okay, so we have our action items then, and we'll come back to this on Wednesday. Next up is the RFQ for green infrastructure. And again, this was something that's been brought before the board. It's all part of implementing our sustainability initiatives. We're a small village, and we're looking hopefully for a firm that we can partner with us to help us with some of those sustainability initiatives. One of which, for example, is our heating and cooling system for Village Hall. And Steve, I know you've been gathering information about that as well, for some other more sustainable options. Also our streetlights. Zach, I know we've had conversations about that as well. And this would be essentially an RFP to, as I say, find a firm to work with us to track the cost savings and help us implement all of these initiatives. Scott, again, thank you. Boy, you've been hopping for putting this together. And really, I think at this point, if anybody has questions, let's ask them now. But other than that, I think we should really direct Scott to work with Jeff and maybe sort of, finalize this a little bit and bring it back to the board.
Yeah, I don't think Scott came up with this, so.
This
It's a nice sort of template.
Yes, it is a draft.
Yeah, so, but if you guys, if we can sit down and go over it and, and then, bring it back to the board, but if there's any other questions or input, yeah.
Yeah, I did have some concerns as I was reading over this. Generally, I've been in favor of many green initiatives in the village and have supported those. With this one, it feels to me like it's quite vague. And I'm concerned that it would really be something that's relevant to larger infrastructure, larger municipalities. And it also seems like it basically the costs even out based on the benefits of the efficiencies that we gain from the program, right? So it's supposed to be advantageous for the municipalities to enter into it on those terms. One of the documents that I found from New York State with the Climate Smart Community, I believe, they said that this kind of thing, I believe it's the same type of program, makes more sense when you've got more than 40,000 square feet of floor area and more than $40,000 annually on energy costs. And I don't think we're there. So I guess, I don't want something like this that involves a lot more complexity, possibly taking out some kind of a loan that we're responsible for, even if it's somewhat covered by the efficiencies that we gain. I feel like we might be better talking about specifics. We're talking about a furnace, we're talking about new lights, and address those individually rather than getting to a more complex arrangement.
I think, this again is, it's the NYSERDA template. So I think, you're right, it's quite broad. We also have, and that's why I think just to even move this forward and have Scott and Jeff and, all take a look at it, there are other smaller municipalities that have done this and implemented this, and we have some of their RFPs, and that's something I think that we should really look at to make it a little more customized for all of the projects that we want to do and we know that we need to do. We're small, we don't have all of these resources, and I can tell you right now, our staff is pedal to the metal every single day. So to really address all of these projects sort of piecemeal, I think really would put a strain on our internal resources between the staff at Village Hall and also the DPW. And I think this is something we should at least look at as a board, as another potential resource to really implement a lot of these things that we have been talking about. And so, for example, one of the things that the Golisano Institute for Sustainability came up with is the idea of putting a solar roof on DPW. Well, my gosh, that's a whole other project, and hooking it up to the grid and maybe doing some storage down there. That there's so many things that we could be looking at, implementing EV chargers in some parts of our village, one behind Village Hall, maybe one down by the Arboretum, so to bite off bits, I think, I hear where you're coming from, but I think we can customize this and tailor this. This is just the first swipe at this, just saying, this is the kind of thing that we can be doing. And I think we really should move forward with this, and tonight just give some direction to, Scott to help us, and Jeff from a legal standpoint, some things that we can be looking at, and looking at some of those RFPs that really address the needs of smaller municipalities, because so many of them are doing this and getting great cost savings. But, yeah.
I understand there may be other municipalities that have greater definition in some of these, especially smaller municipalities. I would propose, since this is a complex task, rather than delegating it to hourly contractors that we have on the legal side and on the engineering side, I would feel more comfortable personally reviewing case studies or RFPs, names of these other municipalities, so I can see what they've done with this kind of thing before we kind of give a research task to other professionals that are working for the village.
That's a fair point. That's fair, and I appreciate your input. I can tell you this too. Firms such as this that will work with municipalities to help them implement these initiatives also do the grant writing, they source funding. There is a tremendous amount of money out there right now, and my concern is that windows close on these things, and we all know grant cycles are quick, and so there's a lot of moving parts. Of course, whatever RFPs we have a few. We can get some more, we can send out to the board certainly to review. But I really would like to move forward on this. I think this is, again, an opportunity. We do not have the resources that we need in-house to facilitate so many of these projects that are wonderful for our village. Any other thoughts?
So, Trustee Lightgib, are you suggesting that you what more time to go look and see if you have some examples before we direct Jeff or
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Scott? And how much time do
What do
you,
you need?
yeah, do you want
I'd
a
like
month or
to-
do you?
Well, what I would, if we do know of the names of a few other municipalities that are around our size or a little bit larger, I would suggest that perhaps we add a couple of those RFPs or names of those things we can do around research to the next meeting. And then we take it from
Okay,
there.
let's do that, for sure. Yeah,
That
we'll do
sounds like a
that.
good plan.
Yeah, and
They've
because
got
I'm
a lot
talking to a lot of
of-
other mayors and also NICOM has some additional information too. So let's do that. Okay, so
Sounds great.
that's the action item. Moving
Can
on.
we take a 10-minute break? We've been at this 2.5
Yeah,
hours.
that's probably not a bad idea.
You're so close.
Okay, Scott, I think we're good. Was, Scott- what, oh, yes,
I'm sorry, there was a comment I
okay,
missed
okay, you missed one.
for the previous.
Okay,
Our Pier 70 State Street, the board should not cut themselves short, but having a less than thorough RFP out of fear of not having firms reply.
okay, thank you very much. That's a good idea to take a 10-minute break.
Yeah.
I
I'll make a
know.
motion to adjourn for 10
Well,
minutes.
can I jump in right here?
Yeah.
Because you need an executive session,
Mhm.
and this is the time you need the executive session. So it might be
Oh.
worth just going to executive session. Then you can take a break.
Standing
Then
up
we
while
can-
we do
yeah.
it.
That way you can clear.
10-minute walk.
Yeah, walk to the executive session right where we are.
There we are.
You need that anyway.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
So
That's a
how about a
great
motion,
idea.
a motion to,
So does this mean that the meeting's ended because you're gonna move to executive session?
no, it means they're going to go into executive session. When they come out of session, we'll go back into a meeting.
but there's only the diversity training
And minutes.
and minutes, and the
Well,
minutes.
and member items and public comment.
Yeah, member items and then.
So
yeah.
I would, here's what I would suggest that we do. We take a 10-minute break and come back and do those things that we don't need in an executive session for, including member items, minutes, comments from the public. Then we do the executive session, and then we come back and do anything we need to do, so that we don't hold all these people here while we do an executive session.
Whatever the board wants.
So you want to make a motion?
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to adjourn for 10 minutes and come back and complete the meeting of everything except the executive session.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Trustee Stetser?
Aye.
Trustee Keating?
Aye.
Trustee Lickett?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, we paused. Are we paused?
Hold on.
Okay. I make a motion to call the meeting to order. Silence in the room, please.
Second?
Roll call.
Trustee Lickett?
Aye.
Trustee Keating?
Aye.
Trustee Stetser?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, next up, we have staff diversity training.
Yeah, so let me tell you where we are with that. So there are several things that we should discuss. I'll try and make it quick. So you learned that the LinkedIn training, you need a LinkedIn account for.
Absolutely.
Okay, now what was nice about that was that it's cheap and it's quick and it's easy. So I do want to explore, before we go on to other options, and know that whatever training we do, there's going to be a human element as well. So in a perfect world, we do some online stuff, and that's a good thing because it allows people to do it at their own pace, it allows them to have their own feelings about it, and then you get together and talk about it. And it's a really good way to do it. So whatever we talk about, whether it's LinkedIn online or something else online, there will be then a human being that comes into a room
Correct.
and talks about it. So before we fully dismiss the LinkedIn idea, let's talk about it for a minute.
Can I jump in real quick?
No, not yet. So
Apparently not.
I get that your objection was that, apparently not. Okay. Can I just talk for a couple minutes?
Of course.
Thank you. I get that the challenge was you can't require somebody to create a LinkedIn account. Now, and so I do want to address that. And it's that, we don't need them to make something public that makes them uncomfortable. they could create one with a name that is John Doe. It doesn't really matter, just so that they can take the training and they show us a little certificate that says, John Doe, I completed it. And that's really it. So that's what I was thinking in terms of LinkedIn.
Understand, and I think I found another company. We'll do it. It's a Pittsburgh-based company. It'll be $500, training 15 people. They're going to waive the startup fee because then they're dropping the costs. So we can get that started right away. So we will have the same thing you're talking about, just online training immediately.
Oh, okay.
So you don't have to open it, you don't have to create your own.
No, they don't
social
have
media
to,
account
no,
or-
we won't have to have LinkedIn accounts. Nobody will have to do anything. They'll go through the training, they'll have a test, and we'll get a certificate.
Okay. So can you send information of who that company is so we can
Yes,
look into it?
I can forward that to the board first thing tomorrow morning. That just came through, I think, Wednesday.
Great.
So that's that proportion. And I think we need both, which I think everybody's in agreement
Yeah.
with. Because I think this is a good thing to have even when we have new people coming in on their onboarding, have them do that test, whatever, go through that whole training. And then we, like we do with the sexual harassment training, do
every year.
Do it every year, try to get somebody for in person. And I did receive another name today for in person that I was going to reach out to.
So is the company that you're proposing, they provide the online stuff, or they provide the online stuff and in person?
They don't offer in person, but I'm
Okay.
aware if they do offer the online.
Okay, great.
And that's
So-
what we need to get started right away.
Right.
Yeah.
So that sounds good. Send us information.
Yep.
Send me a phone number. I'll give them a call. and
Yeah,
talk to
that
them.
came in after, because remember I told you I still have, trying to get people to call back
Yeah.
is impossible.
Yeah.
That came in afterwards.
Okay, great. So then the in-person portion of it. There are two people that I've talked to, and they both could do it. The challenge is they each have a downside. So one of them would be perfect, and she is not really available. She's got a family situation and is not really available until, she said, check with me end of February, and I'll probably be able to tell you when I can do it. And so that's not ideal. It's not terrible. So she would likely say, either I can't do it at all, or I can do it within the next 6 weeks or something. So we're still looking at maybe Q1, but it might push into Q2 for the in-person portion of it. Not ideal. The second person, unfortunately, is a prominent Democrat. And it's not a great idea to make it would get politicized whether you wanted it to or not. And so that's the downside there. That person could also do it, and I've been in sessions that they've done, but the problem is that it just might get misconstrued as a political thing, and it's not, but you put a D or an R by somebody's name, and that's what happens. So I'm much more in favor of waiting a few weeks and working with this person at the end of February. But in the meantime, doing the online portion and maybe making that happen.
Yeah, I will be happy to send out the information to the board.
Yeah.
It's within my purview to approve, to move it ahead. So if there's no everybody jumping up and screaming, we'll go ahead and get that going
Yeah, get it up and
immediately.
running.
I just want to check the curriculum.
Yeah, I did go through this last year. It covered things. I just feel, I like the interaction of like the sexual harassment. I think that's.
Yeah, I think that's where we're
Fits
going, and I think we're all in agreement with that.
Well, it is
Yeah.
a good onboarding tool. It is something we can get up right away. So I think it's a good step.
Yeah.
So I think we're all in agreement. And then in the meantime, I can check out the other person for the in-person and see
Okay.
where we stand with that.
And I also have another contact for in-person training that I can follow up with.
Oh, great.
So maybe,
Well, then
we
maybe
can keep
that'll
moving it
happen
forward, yeah.
Before.
Yeah, so we'll keep trying to move it forward.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. So I'll get that out to the board
Great.
tomorrow.
Great.
And
I'll put a reminder in my calendar to ping this person end of
Thank you.
February.
Okay, thank you.
okay.
Okay, great. Okay, so there's that. Then we have, do you want to do minutes?
Only if the board wants to.
I am ready.
Everybody is pumped because you've been doing those minutes.
I did receive corrections. I made those corrections, and thank you so much. After
All right.
a 5-hour meeting, apparently I forget who voted on it.
Okay, so let's get to the
Okay.
first set, please. Where are we?
October 13th.
Yeah. Let me get back up here. Any, the first one's October 13th, right? You said, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, are there any additions other than what is,
I'll make a motion to approve October 13th minutes
is there a second?
As amended.
as amended. There were amendments to
I'll
those.
second.
Okay.
Okay, we have a second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Lickett?
Aye.
Trustee Keating?
Aye.
Trustee Stetser?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passed.
I'll make a motion to approve the October 27th minutes as amended.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Hold on, I had one,
Oh, I have
I
one
had
too.
an edit on this one.
I had a very tiny one under Village in Bloom. It says Village of Bloom.
Oh.
Just saying.
You know, sometimes the editor comes back and changes it.
But that was the only one. I forgot to tell you about that one. It's just mine.
Oh, no, mine's the 20, I have edited on the 27th, so.
Okay, that is the
Yeah,
27th.
we're on
Oh,
the
on the
27th.
27th,
Yep.
on, just, you see where recess is? It's page 49 of the packet, but the two motions after recess say motion failed, and they're copied from the
Oh,
prior
it's copy
one.
and paste.
Yeah,
I'll fix,
so it's only those two, from there it's correct.
I'll fix it.
Good catch.
Thank you.
So I'll make a motion as amended to approve the October 27th minutes.
I'll second.
Trustee Lickett?
Aye.
Trustee Keating?
Aye.
Trustee Stetser?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, next up, what do we have? November 3rd?
Number 3rd.
Okay, any additions? Were they amended?
I don't think I
I
received
know that
any.
they were-
On November 3rd.
I'll make a motion to approve the November 3rd minutes.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Yep. Trustee Stetser?
Aye.
Trustee Keating?
Abstain, this was a meeting that was scheduled for when I work.
Okay.
Trustee Lickett?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passes.
And I don't think we can do November 10th because Lily's not here and it looks like.
Yeah,
that was
that's
my
right.
bad.
Three
Yeah,
of us
we'll
were
skip
here.
that one.
Yeah.
Thank you, Renee.
You were-
So close, I know. You were on a roll, weren't you?
All right, December 9th. This one should be really easy.
I'll make a motion to accept the November 9th minutes.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Lickett?
Aye.
Trustee Keating?
Aye.
Trustee Stetser?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. More are coming.
I love those minutes.
Oh, I love typing them,
Oh, yeah,
especially the 5-hour ones.
yep. You can relive every moment. Okay, so, member items.
I do not have any.
Okay, Dan,
Um,
member items?
I have two. One is the same statement I've made at almost every trustees meeting, that I'm in favor of directly working at all times with the developer to solve 75 Monroe. The second thing I'd like to ask is the status of the mailer to village residents, giving them an update on 75 Monroe and what's been going on there. So I'm asking for that to.
Yeah, Kristen's working on that with me. She's gone through some of the older mailers and newsletters, and we're reformatting it. And so that'll be going out pretty soon. You'll be getting the draft, so you guys can take a look.
So is
Okay.
she rewriting it?
No, I'll be writing it, but she's just helping me with formatting, and she'll be helping me, put it together graphically.
Okay, and it is a dedicated letter about 75 Monroe. It's not a newsletter with all sorts of other stuff.
It's going to be on the first page of a newsletter. I think it's a more efficient way to mail it, and we'll get that information out.
Okay, so what is the timeline of producing this?
Probably within the next couple of weeks.
Okay,
But we've been working also on the budget, just take a look at my whiteboard, but we'll get it out. She's helping me with
so
that.
it'll go out, so it's the
I'm not going to give
12th.
you a final date, but
Well,
probably
I'm
within
just
the next 2
ballpark,
weeks.
Within the
ballpark.
next 2
Within
weeks,
the
great.
next
So
couple of
let's
weeks.
call it January.
We'll try. We'll try.
And we'll be able to see a version of this and give.
As I just
input.
said, I'm going to send you guys the draft. I just said that, yeah.
And time for our attorneys to review it as well?
Yep, that's how it works.
Okay,
Yep.
I'm not sure you need to be snarky.
Okay. All right. It's a long meeting, I'm sorry. I guess I'm a little tired, and I know we all are. Anything else to add?
Nope.
Okay. Justin, do you have any member items?
No, not at this time.
Okay. I have a member item. Oh, yeah, Zach, do you have a member item?
No, sorry, Dan just brought up, idea of a mailer going out. Does it require board approval to have something, a mailer sent out? Or is it
I
something?
don't think so.
No, we're,
Right.
yeah, what are?
I just had an idea, well, sanitary sewer reasons, that we don't have to discuss it.
We'll talk, anything you want to, yeah, there's going to be a little blurb for you guys. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Okay, yeah. Let's keep it moving here. I have a member item. The fire department is celebrating its 125th anniversary of service to our community. And it's wonderful. There's going to be a really nice event that's going to be held downtown. I'll be attending. I believe the county executive will be attending, as well as the town supervisor. And it's an opportunity really to express our appreciation for all of those years of service to our community. So I would like the board to consider us, issuing a proclamation of appreciation for all of those years of service to the fire department. And Jeff, I know we were talking about proclamations, and Dorothea, you may have some examples of some, just to, really acknowledge the good work they've done on behalf of our community. And also at the same time that evening, he has just stepped down as fire chief of Station 1 here in the village. Matt Payne is being honored for many years of service. And so, again, I would like to issue just a certificate of appreciation and acknowledgement of the good work he's done.
Great.
So we'll be putting that together.
Is that
I
our
think
next
that's, yeah.
meeting? Next meeting, the end of the month, or?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, it's pretty straightforward
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But I just think it's really an opportunity to express, our appreciation.
I
Yeah.
just have one thing. I believe that I might have incorrectly stated the date of the minutes to approve. Instead of, I might have said November 9th, it's December 9th.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
So I
we'll
just
try.
wanted to.
Thank you.
um,
Okay, great. Okay, public comment, anything else to add? Excuse me one second, I saw a hand go up in the back, and then you, yes.
I just have two brief comments.
Could you give your name and address, please, for the record?
Yeah.
Thanks, Ken.
Kenneth Morrow, 48 Sutherland Street. I just have two brief comments. One is that I think if participating in the COMIDA, whatever you call it, letter of whatever, is optional, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't think it's in the interest of the village taxpayers to give a tax holiday to the 75 Monroe project. So I would ask that the village not do that.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is, I think regarding the 75 Monroe project, and I'll refer to it as, from the title here, the review of, no, that's not it. There it is. Architecture and Building Code Services. I think, it'd be in the interest of the village residents to make sure that a proper job is done on reviewing what's necessary in that very large project. And, if the developer's pushing you along, I think the village needs to consider its interest that it be done properly and not be herded into doing it quickly and, maybe incompletely or whatever because of pressure from the developer.
Thank you.
Those are my two brief comments.
Yep, thank you. Good input, thanks so much. Yes, and Bob, you had a comment as well.
Quick question, it's Robert Corby, 7 Washington Avenue. I've noticed some of the new trees planted appear to be maybe miniature cherry trees that are planted in areas where there's very wide mediums and no wires above.
I'm concerned about that because obviously historically, part of the village's historic integrity as a historical landscape includes full-size street trees that also have more benefits for traffic calming because they create a canopy over the street and condense the visual perception of the street to drivers and slow down traffic. I just wondered if we can find out what the new trees are and what the policy is, because I would still advocate in all areas to plant the largest trees possible from the Cornell Urban Horticultural updated list, which we've used for the last 20 years.
Thank you. Great, thanks. Okay. And
Make a motion to go into executive session.
is there a second?
For the purpose of,
Oh, for the purpose, yeah,
HR issue?
yeah, HR issues.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Keating.
Is that how I know those trees?
Trustee Stetser.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Well, one's on Lincoln Avenue.
Motion passes.
And then there was just a new one planted in front of the area I saw today, but it's not.
I make a motion, we come out of executive session.
Second.
Roll call.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Keating.
Aye.
Trustee Stetser.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, I will make a motion to hire Matthew McIntyre for $21.50 an hour, or at the rate of $21.50 an hour. Start date pending fulfilling the physical, and what other requirements are there? Is that it?
Reference check?
Yes.
Okay.
Did you do, that's the references, right?
Yes, I think it's whatever.
Okay.
Well, they're taken care of.
For the role of what? Or for the title of?
MEO.
MEO?
Yeah, motor equipment operator.
Seconded.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Keating.
Aye.
Trustee Stetser.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I will make a motion to hire Brandon Hopkins at $18.50 an hour, start date pending physical and other requirements, satisfying as a temporary employee for DPW?
MEO, as an MEO.
As an MEO.
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 Motor equipment operator.
Okay.
Seconded.
Before you finish, with the healthcare,
Yeah, how do we do, or what do I need to amend it?
with monthly healthcare.
With monthly.
Healthcare? Okay, temporary month to month, including healthcare
Yes,
at $18.50 an hour.
And holidays.
and holidays.
And holidays. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Seconded.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Stetser.
Aye.
Trustee Keating.
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Enough with the chitty chat.
Okay, I make a motion, we adjourn the meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Keating.
Aye.
Trustee Stetser.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes. Good
Okay.
night, all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thanks, everybody, really.
My pleasure.